The Spartan U.S. Championship Series will unfold over the course of 5 distinct races. Speed, strength, and endurance will be tested as contenders must prove they can conquer each Spartan race distance.
To win the U.S. National Championship Series, you have to be well-rounded. You have to be well at sprints. You have to be well at supers. You have to be well at beasts.
The difference between a sprint and a beast is quite significant. So if you're able to win both of those events, in my eyes, you're one of the fittest athletes on the planet.
In the end, racers will keep their top 4 scores, and the elite male and female with the highest cumulative point total will make obstacle racing history and be crowned the 2016 Spartan U.S. Series champion.
To be the champion, it'll take a level of focus and determination over months. Every race is gonna count. You have to be able to finish strong no matter what.
It's gonna take a lot of what obstacle racing entails. Determination, focus, grit, a lot of constant drive.
U.S. Championship Series means a lot in the sport of obstacle racing.
We want to show the world that we're a legit sport with awesome athletes. We want to be a sport that people respect.
Good morning, Spartan Nation. We are live from Black Mountain in beautiful Asheville, North Carolina for the Southeast Showdown, race number 4 in the Spartan U.S. Championship Series. Every race matters, but for some athletes, this will make or break their season. Will Hobie Call clinch the men's series today, or does Ryan Atkins have something up his sleeve? On the women's side, has Lindsay Webster once again found her unbeatable stride, or will newcomer Nicole Miracle rule the day? I'm your host, David Magida, and I'm joined once again by Spartan Pro Team athlete Bracken Crocker, as well as the triumphant return to the booth of Amelia Boone. Welcome back, Amelia.
Hey, thanks for having me back, guys.
And Bracken, of course, good to see you.
Good to be back again. Looking forward to this.
We are pretty excited about the race that we've got going on today, and out here on this Asheville course, it is a fast one today, I think.
It's going to be quick. It looks like it, though there has been some rain in the area. And so it's pretty muddy and wet out there right now, which could cause some issues with footing and traction.
Bracken and I, we ran the course last night, and you can tell us a little bit about how slick and treacherous some of the terrain is as well.
Very wet course, very slippery. The up and down hills are going to be very treacherous for a lot of these athletes. Footwear today could be a dictating factor in this race.
So we are on race number 4 of the U.S. Championship Series here in Asheville, and after this race, we have only one remaining. It's going to be in West Virginia. It's the lone beast of this series, August 26th, and back to a mountain. Your top 4 results do count for this series. You can drop one race, and a lot of these men have already done their drop, so they need to perform well in each of the next 2 events. We've got your leaders in the U.S. Championship Series. We'll take a look at them right now. Hobie Call, your only athlete of the day who can clinch the title for the U.S. Championship Series if he wins the race today. But Ryan Atkins also right there, if he wins, will tie the series in terms of his ability to drop one score. What do you guys think of the men's field right now?
This is my big takeaway here. This is what I'm looking forward to. Hobie wins, he clinches, but if Ryan wins and Hobie takes second, they are theoretically tied moving forward.
And for some who don't know, that's a tie in theory because, of course, you get to drop one race. So if you were to pull out each of their worst result, they would each actually have the exact same number of points.
Right. But it'll set up, you know, if Ryan manages to pull it out, it'll set up a showdown there in West Virginia.
What a fascinating race West Virginia is going to be. And West Virginia is listed as our tie-breaking race anyways. So that will be a fun event. So up there in front, coming up to the line, we have Mark Batteries. And I think we can all say that he's going to be a factor today given the terrain of this course and his ability as a marathoner. How fast a marathoner did you say he was?
Sub 220, correct?
219?
Yeah, yeah.
So he can run. And he said in Monterey that he did not go out as fast as he would have liked. Isn't that what he told you, Bracken?
Yeah, he said, my one regret is I did not go out fast enough. My first mile was about 5:20, and I just felt like I was holding back a little bit. Now, for him, 5:20 is not even marathon pace, but on that kind of terrain, it's kind of crazy that he is looking to go out faster than that today.
And we talk a lot about how these athletes learn from the mistakes they make, and Mark is relatively new to Spartan racing, not new to racing as a whole, as he was a great marathoner, but new to Spartan race. And your skills and your understanding of this sport improve and increase over time. He's learned from that mistake of not starting out fast enough, so we could see a very fast start from Mark Batchers.
Exactly. It looks like we
have Angel Quintero over the line.
Could also be a great race for him as well. Has speed, did very well in Palmerton. A course that I think that people didn't expect that he would do well on. So he's got some tricks up his sleeve as well.
And Angel Quintero from Mexico is one of the purest runners in the field. He was a great steeplechase athlete. You also saw BJ Jones coming over the wall, and he's our youngest competitor at only 18 years old, and tied for 5th overall in the U.S. Championship Series with Glenn Race right there as well, who came out of nowhere to crush that Palmerton course.
Glenn Race, feel-good story of the year so far. Back from injury, back fit, healthy, and attacking races like we know and love to watch him do.
And I think we've always said about Glenn is when Glenn is on, he's as good as anybody. And if Glenn can put together another performance like Palmerton, he's going to be a big factor out there today. Exactly. He loves the courses where he can open up and run a little bit more. I was shocked with his ability to climb in Palmerton this past race, and I think that's a good sign for him because he seems to have eliminated one of his weaknesses.
Here we see the most consistent racer, arguably, on the Spartan circuit. Robert Killian still has yet to miss an NBC podium. He's been top 3 in every NBC race he's ever done.
And there's another man who seems to always be right there. There's your defending U.S. Championship Series champ, and that's Ryan Atkins, 3-time World Championships runner-up, looking to make it a championship this year.
Hometown hero there on the far left, Ryan Woods. He's an Asheville boy. Just outside, he's from Boone, and this is, in his own words, his backyard. This is his terrain, and he is looking to make up for last year where he rolled his ankle 1 mile into the race.
And Ryan Woods, the interesting thing is he did 120 burpees at Palmerton and still nearly got a podium spot. So you're looking at a guy who can run as well as any of them. And now, the man, the myth, the legend, Hobie Call. He's won the last 2 races. He could have possibly won all 3 if he hadn't had that slip up on the Z-wall and dropping his bucket in Seattle. He is your defending world champion, and he is currently in 1st place in the men's series for the U.S. Championship Series.
He's the man to beat right now. He is doing what he's been doing for the last 8 years of obstacle racing. And until someone proves it, I don't know if anyone can beat him out here on this course. It is a course that is not decided by any one strength here. It's not a pure climbing, pure running. This is a well-rounded course, and Hobie is as well-rounded as any athlete we've ever seen.
We described this course yesterday when we were talking about it as a really interesting mix of Seattle and Palmerton put together in terms of a little bit of that grittiness of Palmerton, slick and wet and technical, but also quick like Seattle as well. We're going to pass it down to Steve Hammond down by the start line. Steve, tell us a little bit about this course today.
Good morning, guys. Well, it's awesome to be here. This is one of my favorite courses, and I'll tell you what, we have everything out there for the guys and the girls who are going to run this course. There are rivers, there are mountains. They're going to go through every type of terrain on their feet. It's going to be slippy. There's going to be fast sections. There's 3 super heavy carries. There's a big double sandbag carry. That double sandbag carry is 120 pounds. That might be a deciding factor about 4 miles into the race.
So the men have got to do 120 pounds on the sandbag carry, and then it's a big climb, and then we have a bucket carry after that, right, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, they go into this amazing amphitheater rock quarry, and then you've got this amazing, formidable bucket carry. It is long. It's a really long bucket carry. I think we're looking about just over a quarter of a mile, maybe even more. So it is a fast course. I think some of the faster runners are going to get out there and try and own it. We've talked about Mark Batchers. I think Ryan Woods is going to be a factor in here as well. But you'll be an unwise man to bet against the sort of the big 3. You got Hobie Call, Robert Killian, and Ryan Atkins. And I'll tell you what, they're going to try and own this. They're trying to get out and stop Hobie Call from taking the series win.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Appreciate it, your input as usual, and we're going to take it from here. So, Amelia, You haven't run this course before.
I have not. This is my first time out here in beautiful Asheville. It's lovely.
Thoughts on what you've seen so far?
You know, I remember when I first heard about Asheville, and I was like, well, it's in the south, it's got to be kind of flat, and it's not. It's not. There's beautiful mountains around here. But I think, like Bracken said, it's going to be kind of a toss-up. You need to be solid and strong in all aspects. You can't just be a climber. You have to be fast on flats. And you also have to be able to navigate some technical terrain. We haven't even touched on the river, which you wade into actually at the very beginning, which you guys ran yesterday and you said was very slick and treacherous under there.
We're excited to talk about the course, and you can see the map up in front of you. And this race opens up almost immediately dropping you into that river. And what we found was so surprising is that the river immediately goes about neck deep. So if you're about 6 feet tall, you're up to your neck in river. And then it shallows out, and they're going to do a lot of running with shin and knee deep, waist deep water. Couple minutes in there, and then onto the roads where things flatten out, and it gets fast briefly before we head into some rolling hills. And then the heavy carries come. So we're here up at the starting line right now. We're going to obviously give you a little bit more info on the course later on, but this is the sight to see.
At this point, the racers are receiving their final instructions. You have the course referee and marshal down there letting them know the exact rules of every obstacle, any particulars they have for this venue that's different than any other venue, and giving them their last little advice here and rule breakdown before they're released.
So generally, they're going to tell you about your 30 burpee obstacle penalties, your mandatory completion obstacles, as well as anything technical that they need to be aware of throughout the course. This right now is that moment of anticipation where everybody's kind of building and you're excited and you're butterflies.
Ready to go.
And these guys have been waiting maybe a little longer than normal to get the race going. And you're going to see them come out of the gates hard and fast. I think it's going to be a really aggressive start. I think Woods, Batrice are going to drop the hammer early.
I think so too. I mean, especially if Mark was talking about how in Monterey he didn't go out fast enough. I'm excited to see how this unfolds.
Okay, so here's the big test, guys.
At the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Fantastic, and what a beautiful sight to see while you're listening to that. So the race is about to get underway, guys, and my question for you right before we start, your top 5, real quick.
Start out here, the favorite, it's not going out on a limb, but Hobie
Call 1, I agree.
Ryan Atkins is going to be highly motivated, and Killian, I mean, those 3 are head and shoulders above right now with no Hunter here. I think those are the 3, but I think Angel is my call to round out the podium along with Ryan Woods.
Okay, wow.
Nice of Brian Gawiski,
Any other
though,
thoughts?
to wear.
I think I'm going to put Ryan Woods. I'm going to put Ryan Woods up in 2 or 3.
Wow.
I am going to call a dark horse right now.
Today's the day he puts it together?
Today is the day he puts it together.
I have a feeling I'm looking at I agree with the top 3, but Glenn Reyes and Mark Batrice in there as well. And they're off. We've begun the race, and we're going to see right out of the gates, it looks like you see Batrice right up to the front, a few other faces, but as they come out of the river, that's where you're going to really see things shake up. Like early on, you'll see a cluster here. They don't want to be bottlenecked as they get into the river. You know, we talked about not wanting to be behind.
And here we go, Mark right away establishing he's not going to be bottlenecked. This river happens about 800 meters in, and it is really, really slippery, David. We fell a lot yesterday. They're going to be, if there's someone right in front of you in the river, it's going to be tough to find a foot.
So what you have is these submerged rocks, and they're literally the slipperiest things you can possibly encounter. So every step, your feet just are shooting sideways, basically. And it makes it very technical to get through the river, but you also are worried you're trying not to hurt yourself or expend too much energy as you work your way through.
I'm going to make an addendum. I'm going to throw Matt Kempson, surprise top 5. He's my call.
Oh, all right. I like it.
And he ran a great race here last year.
He did. He did. So we could see this is interesting with him starting in the river. It's kind of like I would equate it to in the beginning of triathlon in the swim. You want to get away and out in front of everyone, so you don't get jammed in there.
There was a great shot last year, and they've used it in some of these promo packages of Hunter and Ryan Atkins going down the river today, and Hunter bumping into Ryan and Ryan getting knocked over into the water.
They always made that look like Hunter did it on purpose, maybe a little bit. But really, I think he just slipped. It's very slippery out there. So right now, it's that swift, flat terrain, and they're about to wrap that corner, and just it drops into the water, and it's deep, and it's quick. And there are actually, we saw some fish swimming around in there yesterday.
Oh, yummy.
No, some like trout, but there's a trout, bass, maybe
Some
a small
bass in
mouth.
there, yeah. And this is the first time where footwear, the choice of footwear is going to start separating the field a little bit. If you have the wrong type of rubber, as silly as that sounds, on the bottom of your shoes, there is zero grip on those rocks. If you have the correct choice of footwear, you can actually find some purchase and start moving away from people down this river.
Okay, so now that bend that we were talking about, so they are about to drop in to the river, and we should have some great footage of this, by the way. It's going to be a really fun stretch to the river, probably a few minutes that they'll cut through there, a few flat road sections after that, and then the hills are going to start to roll a little bit. Not the same way this course did last year when it was a little bit more rugged and bushwhacky early on. And then we hit
a sandbag carry.
Then we hit a sandbag carry.
Should really start some separation. Let's see.
That'll blow the race wide open, and in both the men's race and the women's race, I think, because the women are going to do a 60-pound bag, the men are going to do 2 60-pound bags, so it's a heavier carry than we've been doing this year.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And I think it's a great balance to the faster, flatter nature of this course, and the fact that it's not so much flat, but you're on roads. And you're on more fire roads and not necessarily bushwhacking. And so for people that are better strength athletes, they will look to those bucket carries, to those sandbag carries to kind of be the equalizer in this race.
We are back at the map, and we're looking at obstacle number 1. It's going to be the over walls. We're going to take a look back shortly at Palmerton in the race and how that defined this season. You guys can get a quick peek of Palmerton right after we get through this little river section. So right now, as you can see, they've made it through the deep section, and they're headed into
another drop off here. The people who fare well are going to hug the sides of the river. The middle is always going to be the most slippery. A name we haven't talked about that I think will do well here, Ian Hosick. I'm interested to see if his progression on this NBC series, this U.S. Championship series, continues with this. See them hugging this far left side here.
I think for a lot of guys right now, they're saying, okay, I can't lose contact with the leaders, but how aggressive do I want to be as I move down this sideline? Because you can easily roll an ankle, bust a shin, and really hurt yourself moving forward in the race.
And if I was in this position right now, I actually would not want to be out in front. I would want to be tailing a person behind to follow their footsteps so you can see and learn from their mistakes. If they drop into a gnarly point, you want to avoid that. So I would not want to be the guy in front right now, but that would just be my technique and tactic in that situation.
So right now, it appears Mark Batra still up in the lead. Once we get a little bit of a closer look, we might be able to tell how this thing is shaking out, but look how aggressive they are attacking this right now. It is a pretty relentless push, and I think Mark has made the choice that he's going to try and hurt the field early with his running ability and put himself in a position where he's gapped some of the guys that could be a danger to him in some of those heavy carries later on.
Exactly. You got to play to your strengths in this situation. But, I mean, if you've ever tried running through a river, it's incredibly taxing and difficult at this point.
So here we see we're exiting the river, and already there's a big separation. We have about 5 guys out front, and then there's a gap, and then a single file after this. And we hit a little bit of a wall section here, and then flat, slightly uphill runnable. And people are going to have to switch into a little bit of panic mode. Anyone who came out of this and is no longer in contention, people that might have thought, I need to stay top 3 at the beginning, but this river kind of just blew apart their plan.
So Mark is now, is that him in second, I believe, as we come over the overwalls. We're going to see a little bit of a shakeup here. So
I don't see Mark anymore.
You'll have a lead pack opening up and rolling, and then the next couple groups, they're not out of it by any means. Is that Woodsy coming over the wall right now? Ryan Woods just came over the wall in about 6th position. You'll find that these athletes are going to, the better runners here will close the gap and tighten things up a little bit.
Get Brian Gowiski getting out in 4th place here, trailing Hobie, Killian, and I believe Ryan Atkins.
So the big 3. And Gowiski's a surprise out there, but we knew that he was going to try and get out early. And they're headed out from obstacle 1 to 2. So the overwalls are done. The hurdle's coming up next. And then we have 6-foot walls. And then a little stretch in the woods before we head into that daunting double sandbag carry. Now a look up at Palmerton and a recap of the race from there and the impact on the U.S. Championship Series. Stop number 3. Races are off, coming up right the steepest mountains that we have on the Spartan Series.
The race goes off. Ryan Atkins, Robert Killian go out hard. Robert takes the lead. I actually caught him on the first descent.
In first place.
I'm just like, I'm not giving it back. I got it. I'm keeping it.
It's going to be a difficult man to catch. He knows the pressure's on.
Going into the spear, I see Hobie nail it. I know there's not an option for failure here. I have to hit it no matter what.
In this race, he is going to nail this spear.
It was a great feeling. At that point, I wanted to just go and attack and try to catch up with Hobie.
They have a heavy sandbag coming up. This is an obstacle that punishes people. There's a lot of danger.
Going and see Hobie at the top, probably had a 1.5 minute lead.
3rd position. Is that Ryan Woods?
Ryan Woods had actually caught up when he was right there on me. I knew for the rest of the race it was just going to be him and I just battling it out.
Right? Hobie call, and then everybody else.
I had a huge lead at that point. I'm like, this is in the back. And I could not get my fingers under it. I probably lost a solid half a minute at least.
Ryan Atkins place.
I tell you what, definitely a battle for 3rd place going on.
I found myself in this battle stuck between. I just kept pushing forward. I went here. The next thing I hear Woods yelling, "Ah!" and then splash. And I'm like, boom, that's my opportunity. He's not going to get in front of me after this.
We're going to have a champion today in Hobie Call. His lead.
I'm anticipating retiring at the end of the year. I'm putting everything I got into these 6 races.
Ryan Atkins, 2nd place. 3rd place, Robert Killian. Royal. And welcome back to Asheville, North Carolina for race 4 in the U.S. Championship Series. And you have your men's U.S. Championship Series rankings after the first 3 races. And the man at the top, Hobie Call, sitting there with only 1 point deducted after 3 whole races. It's pretty amazing.
That's pretty incredible. I've never really seen something like that so far in this championship series.
Looking at the back end of this race, VJ Jones, Jesse McChesney, Kirk DeWint, we're starting to see that next generation, some new blood being infused into the men's side, which has been pretty stable at the top for the last several years.
So they're coming over these 2 overwalls, and then they're going to keep rolling for a little bit. And now it's when we get into that back, what was a bushwhack area last year with a ton of rollers that seemed like it just took an eternity to get out of. This year it's just a couple quick climbs, and then they're back to the road. So it'll be swift of foot. You're going to see the fast guys open up some gaps here over the next mile or so.
What will be interesting is, though, for people that do take it out really fast, it's very runnable in the beginning. And then later on, will we see some blow-ups? Because it does get technical and a lot more gnarly terrain towards the end.
And now you see we are with the women's start line. And there's Orla Walsh coming out, one of the Spartan Pro Team athletes. And she's been on the circuit for years and always been competitive and always a crowd favorite.
She's great. Orla is so much fun to compete against and compete with.
And there's Chicago's Kristen Saad. And she was 6th place in Palmerton. She seems to always be hovering right around that podium area. And I think this is actually a course that is ideal for her to put it all together with her cross-country background and her speed.
This will be a very good course for her. I know Palmerton, she does not like the really steep and technical and does not like the descents. So this, I think, should play to her strengths for sure. And this is Laurel Shear, who came over next to her. And Laurel's also another one with Kristen, who's up there every single time.
Faye Stenning just coming over the wall, 2nd place in 4 races in the U.S. Championship Series with a win in Breckenridge as well. Now, after a 3rd place finish at World Championships, she's got a lot to prove. She's making that jump, that transition from rookie to veteran.
Yeah, and it's a difficult one, too, because she had such great success last year, and I know that she's pushing herself harder and harder to achieve that. And speaking of rookies, we just have Nicole Miracle coming over as well, who did compete last year and did well, but this year has stepped it up and taken it to a whole new level.
Her dominant showing in Monterey tells us that she could be a huge factor today. If she can get through the technical stuff, then she is going to be fearsome.
Exactly, but she will be challenged by Rhea Coble here, who, you know, as well, this is a very good course for her. The women's field has just become so deep.
It's so deep.
It's difficult to tell anymore.
I would argue there's much more parity in the women's field than in the men's, that on any given day, any of them could beat the others. Because look at Alyssa Hawley right here, and she really came on in the 2nd half of last year and just continued it. She's sitting in 2nd place in the U.S. Championship Series, and I don't think any of us would have predicted that last year at this time, but her development as an athlete over the last year has been phenomenal.
And what's incredible is if we look at Alyssa as an athlete, you wouldn't think that, for instance, that Seattle would have played to her strengths, but she came out with a victory there. And this is a course that is pretty reminiscent of Seattle, so we could see her come out today and challenge who is probably the perennial favorite here, Lindsay Webster, defending champion from last year.
And Lindsay Webster, you know, 2nd place in the first 2 races of this year after not losing a single one last year, but a dominant showing in Palmerton. And this course, she obliterated the field in last year. So we have her sitting in 1st place, 2 points ahead of Alyssa Hawley. Rhea Coble has moved her way up into 3rd. But really, it's competitive to about 5 athletes deep with Faye Stenning and Nicole Miracle.
Exactly, exactly.
So with these top 5, really, Faye Stenning could be a huge factor today, as could a Nicole Miracle, given their speed on the roads. We're going to go down to Steve Hammond. Steve, who do you like in the race today?
Well, hi guys, this is super exciting. I'm really excited about this race behind me. We've got an amazingly deep field of women, and this is gonna be an epic race. Yes, Lindsay Webster, I think she's gonna try and take this. She needs to. So I think my favorite is definitely Lindsay Webster. Alyssa Hawley is gonna be hot on her tail, but I think my hot favorite, maybe behind Lindsay, maybe to challenge Lindsay, is gonna be Nicole Miracle. She's got something to prove. She had a hard time in Palmerton. Could this be her race? I think it's her style. We will see.
Do you think that Nicole is prepared for the very technical terrain? Do you think that this suits her skill set?
I don't think it's as technical as Palmerton, which did not suit her. This is going to be a little bit like Seattle, like Amelia was just talking about. I think this is going to suit her because there's enough places to open up, and there's enough like road and downs and ups which are going to be quite quick on the feet.
Any other women out here do you think are going to make their mark that we don't already know are going to be impactful in this race?
Well, we've talked a little bit about Christian Said, and I think she's going to be maybe a little bit of a factor. She's a quick runner. You've definitely got likes of Rhea Coble, but yeah, I think you've got that nice deep field, and I think it's going to be really good.
Well, thanks a lot, Steve. We're definitely curious to see how this race is going to play out. Guys, who do you think is going to open up right out into the gates in the front? Do you think it's going to be Nicole again?
It's going to be Nicole. Nicole has been the rabbit in all of these races this year. I mean, even in Palmerton, she destroyed that first mountain climb and was out far, far ahead. And so she likes to take that front position. She likes to lead. Though we'll see. I mean, she maybe is a little bit shy after Palmerton and after having a rough go of it there. So I'm not quite sure if she'll try and change strategy, but I would look for her out in front for sure.
Yeah, the looming double sandbag carry just over 2 miles into this race kind of limits the effect that a front runner can have. You can get out as hard as you want, but over the course of 2 miles, you can only build up so much time, and that double sandbag can take it right back. The story for me is who gets to the top of the final climb first. If Lindsay Webster is in contact at the final climb, I think the race is over.
Because, you know, that race ends with just a barreling downhill and then a lot of flat and a huge gauntlet of obstacles. So one thing we haven't talked about, there's a massive gauntlet of obstacles in the middle of this race, and you'll actually see some of these athletes come in behind us where we're filming here right now, and we'll get a first-hand view of them. There'll be a second gauntlet as they wrap up towards the finish line. So again, what you might see is another one of those situations where grip just gets blown out. Last year, this race was determined with between Hunter and Robert Killian, for example, at the Hercules hoist about 100 yards from the finish line, where Killian could not get the bag up and Hunter passed him right. They finished a Tyrolean rope crossing and then immediately into the Hercules hoist. Hunter got his up. Robert didn't. He took burpees right there, and that race completely got blown open. You could see that happening in the women's field. I could see Alyssa Hawley running a lot of these women down right at the end.
Exactly, because there's that huge brigade of obstacles at the very end. So.
Yeah, this race, 11 of the last 12 obstacles on the course, many of them that are bunched together, all tax your forearms and your grip.
So for that reason, I definitely believe that Alyssa Hawley is going to be a huge factor in the race, in the second half of the race. She loves to just track people down and be ready to row.
Oh, when she came up behind me in Palmerton, I was like, I had no idea she was there. Just tracks them down.
And the ladies are off, and let's see who goes out to the front. Will Nicole Miracle set the tone with an aggressive tempo out of the gates, or did she learn her lesson in Palmerton?
Looks like she's out there. Faye's out there with her. Araya's out there. They're gonna run together, and really when we come up on this river, we'll see, because then again, running through a river is a skill set that we haven't really tested or seen their prowess at. You have to be aggressive, and I think that stereotypically there can be a lot of issues, you know, if you're not aggressive and attacking in that way.
And with Nicole Miracle, much like Mark Batras, it may not be the case that they're necessarily being overly aggressive. It's just that their running is at such a high level that they can stay within themselves and still outrun a large majority of this field. She's such a strong runner, she may be relaxing right now with this gap building.
And that's the interesting thing is she never looks uncomfortable. Even when she looks like she's floating. Much like in the way that a Kobe Call always seems like he's floating, even though he is just driving off the earth with incredible power. And so what you'll find is Nicole seems comfortable at a pace that puts the rest of the field in a place of discomfort.
Exactly. I like seeing Faye Stenning attack from the beginning. She was moving up, passing girls aggressively, making sure that she was in contact. She knows she cannot afford a race that bumps her lower down this points chase.
Exactly, and Faye definitely has that fire lit under her. And it looks like now we have the men attacking that double sandbag carry.
So who do we got up there in the front? It's going to be a long climb. We're looking at somewhere in the realm of 200 to 225 meters up, and then back down. It's 120 pounds on their backs.
This is not the steepest, longest sandbag carry we've had, but it is the heaviest we've had yet this season. And it's so early in the race that some people might feel very good and attack it aggressively and not realize until 20, 30 minutes later that they've kind of taken too much of a hit on that obstacle.
These anaerobic efforts of like the heavy carries, especially the long ones, they can trash your legs for later on, so that all of a sudden you start running again and you start getting those little tweaky cramps in your calves and your hamstrings, and it does damage for later in the race. Is what you'll find is you may think you're gaining 30 seconds here, but you're blowing 30 seconds later or 3 minutes later.
And they're actually moving pretty well with those 120 pounds on their back. I'm actually pretty impressed with how quickly a lot of these guys are moving. Though you can see them stop to readjust, because that's the thing with sandbags. It's not just the weight, it's how awkward that they can be. And it's been raining here, And so a lot of the sand in there can like clump up and be very uncomfortable. To try and get 2 sandbags on your shoulders and to have to keep readjusting is definitely you know, an entire mental task as well.
Speaking of raining on sandbags, a sandbag that was 60 pounds before the rain could be 90 pounds after the rain. Just something to keep in mind, especially as we approach this and the Hercules hoist.
And these sandbags are a little different than the standard Spartan pancake. The pancake Spartan sandbag, it's circular, it's pretty solid. These long black bags, the sand's allowed to shift a little bit, and it makes it, like Amelia said, a lot more difficult to keep in one spot on your shoulder. And with these carries, once you adjust it once or set it down once, you're in for a lot of trouble because it's such a taxing effort to get it back up into a comfortable spot on your body.
And you can see we haven't had a single athlete start the return, the descent back down. Now, some of them are holding it by draping it over their necks, while others are putting one over each shoulder, a few with the clasp overhead of their hands. So a number of different techniques being employed, and now you see some guys just tucking them in tight to their elbows.
Ryan Atkins was the first one coming down the hill there.
Yeah.
The women right now have just hit the water, and you can see they are neck. They
yeah,
are neck deep.
They are swimming.
They're swimming.
They're swimming. This is definitely, if you're under probably 5'9", you're going to need to swim this one.
So it'll be, it's curious to see who's going to be the most aggressive through this early on. There are athletes like Lindsay Webster that know they don't need to be super aggressive here. They need to be in a good position, but they don't need to attack here.
If I was a Faye Stenning or an Alyssa Hawley, I would be attacking this section knowing I'm an aggressive kind of freight train type of runner rather than someone who's going to get up and fly on the flats.
Yeah, exactly. You have to play to your strengths, in that, you know, if you know that you can run technical, if you know that you kind of have that fearless nature in you, then this is something to go at hard.
We were talking earlier, Amelia, about how if you kind of baby tiptoe your way through technical terrain, you're actually more susceptible to slipping and falling. The people that attack the technical terrain.
We always talk about the key to running down hills, especially in key to technical terrain, is you need to go quickly. If you slow down, that's when injury occurs. There's something about the adrenaline, there's something about the focus that will keep your footing there for you, even when you feel out of control.
There's something to be said about the forward momentum in this situation as well, where if you're walking slowly and picking your spots very carefully, you slip, you fall straight down. But if you're running forward, you'll fall a bit forward, the water will cushion the blow. Fewer injuries can happen that way. But also, why not just get out of this water as quickly as possible? I think that's the other thing that we
I think here, I actually think running is not efficient in this situation. I think you need long strides and to almost power hike your way through.
Waiting.
You're gonna, you just wait and so you see that technique being used when they finally then realize that they can then open up and start to run again.
Now look how it shallowed out, and it got to about shin deep, ankle deep, and all of a sudden they just accelerated. It was a really nice burst that you saw out of the athletes there. And they're being pretty aggressive up near the front. The ladies as aggressive as the men coming through the last bit of riverbank.
A little more packed up, too. We have 9 women all in contact in the first. We now have 2 starting to separate a little bit, but still 9 women who are all going to exit the river fully in this race.
Exactly, where they hit that fast flat section. You'll see there who can really open up. I mean, obstacle racing is all about hitting those like anaerobic efforts and the hard obstacles, and then being able to still recover quickly and run quickly. I mean, it's such an incredibly difficult task that I think really showcases what kind of athletes these are.
So yeah, that aerobic to anaerobic effort and training for that specifically is something rare that in most sports you don't really have to do as much as you do in obstacle racing. And Bracken, when we were running yesterday on this course, we were talking about the concept of the binding agent.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that concept that some people in the sport, the sum of their parts is less than their whole, where you have really good mountain runners who are very fast with great grip and they can run technical terrain, but when they have to alternate back and forth between all those skills, they just operate at a lesser capacity. And conversely, there's some athletes who aren't the fastest, strongest, or most explosive, but they can remain at a high level of output for each skill back to back to back.
So coming out of the gates, up in the lead, the angle's a little bit steep. It's hard to tell. Is that Alyssa Hawley up in front right now?
No,
Lindsay's in third.
I think it's Nicole in second there.
That could be a Kristen Sod, actually. As they come over the 2 over walls and head out, this is probably one of the fastest portions of the entire course right here. So you will see them just accelerate. They'll each throw a surge, and if you have some of the better runners that have drifted a little further back because of the riverbank, they may make a move right here. But it's a lot of energy to expend to close a gap like that just occurred in the bank.
Yeah, but if they know that sandbag is coming up, and if that's not suited to you, then it's definitely something that you would want to try and make up some time on this fast flat area.
This is one of these mentally challenging parts where you see the women in the river are running or walking through, but they can see through those trees that some people have already exited the water, and they're that far ahead of them, and you have to stay within yourself and not panic.
So right now, as we look back at the map, the women have just come over the overwalls, so they are just hitting the it's at stop number 1 on the map. But the men are headed over towards Z-Wall, Hercules Hoist. They're going to be coming out of a nice little gauntlet here as they exit out of the woods.
And spear throw here. Last year there was a little bit of trouble on spear throw and rope climb.
Oh, yeah.
Funny enough that the rope climb had some controversy. People weren't able to make it up. It was so wet. Right. This year is one of these festival ground common area obstacles going to play host to some more havoc and shaking up the field a little bit.
Now last year that ended with a disqualification of Ryan Atkins as well as Ryan Kent. So both the Ryans were eliminated right there. That rule has since been altered because what was happening is athletes were running up and testing the rope to see if it was too slick or too muddy to climb, and the rule used to be if you touched a rope, then that was your rope and your climb began. Now you can check a rope, but you just can't leave the ground.
You can actually leave the ground, you just can't fall off the rope. So you could make it halfway up the rope, you could get your Hercules hoist halfway to the top and decide, I don't like this one. As long as you return to the ground appropriately without failing and falling off, you can start another one. It's a very big rule change, and it changes the luck of the draw now. You can go test the weights of several things before committing to an obstacle.
And something could be said when you're looking at a Hercules hoist, for example. Sometimes a pulley just feels a little stickier than another pulley, and you want to make that transition. In the past, you couldn't. Now, the men are headed into Herc hoist very shortly, and it's very timely that we're talking about that because it rained on these bags all night.
Yeah.
Now the question is, how much heavier?
Right. And if they're coming off of just taxing their shoulders there too, what the things you don't realize with sandbag carry is that it will crush your legs, but it also holding those awkward bags in weird positions. I always try to, I don't know about you guys, but not actually put my hands or grip anything on there, and just to hold it mainly with biceps, and since I have such massive ones now, biceps and various parts of your shoulders instead of like using your hands to grip.
You want minimal use of your fingers in that. The other thing that gets trashed when a lot of these guys have to compensate and hold these bags in strange ways is their lower bags. Their lower backs get crushed. They maybe put both bags on one shoulder. They're carrying it unbalanced. Now your muscles in your back are firing to try and stabilize, and then you're just wrecked for the rest of the race.
It's the strategy of what to use during a race is something that gets overlooked by probably the casual observer to the sport. That these athletes all take a look at their course map beforehand, and they look at the bucket carrier or the sandbag, for example, and say, what comes next?
Yep.
If there's nothing for another mile after that, I can squeeze those sandbags and really kind of put the pedal to the metal on that. But if we're coming up to a spear throw or a hoist right away, I need my hands to be accessible to me. So now, Amelia, you have to make that adjustment, carry it with my bicep rather than my grip.
Right, and also knowing too, looking at the course map, is knowing when you're going to get wet, and if you're going to be coming up to something where your hands are going to be wet, or if they're going to be dry, and that makes a big difference sometimes.
Your first athlete is exiting the woods right now. You have Ryan Atkins in first position, followed closely by Hobie Call as they make their way over to the Hercules hoist.
This is huge in my opinion because Ryan is the consummate racer, but when he's run into trouble in the past, it's when he's let the race get a little too far away from him before he begins his charge. He's not letting that happen today.
No. He very rarely gets dropped from a group if he's already leading. And you can see that Hobie's having a little bit more struggle with that bag than Ryan Atkins is, who just does a lot of rock climbing. He's very strong. Hobie's not weak by any means, but he's not quite as large as Ryan Atkins.
Yeah.
It's not that Ryan's a huge guy.
But that's what you don't realize. When the bag is that heavy, it's against your own body weight.
It's pulling you off the ground.
Exactly. So, for instance, if it's a 135-pound sandbag for men and the man weighs 135 pounds, it's going to be pretty difficult to get it up off of there.
Third position, hidden behind a barrier. We couldn't quite see who came in there, but we will shortly. Ryan Atkins has made his way to the spear throw. Now, this is an obstacle that has helped him and hurt him in the past. what you found is he unfortunately missed 2 spear throws at a World Championship event in 2014
yeah.
when Jonathan Albin won that race. Right here, taking his time, being very careful and precise.
Hobie just came into the hoist 5 seconds down. He left the hoist 12 seconds down, and now he's leaving this 2 seconds down. He had such a fast close between hoist and throwing his spear that he just eliminated all the time he lost on that hoist itself.
And he takes very, very little time in between. Or do you notice how much time Ryan took to get his spear ready and everything like that? Hobie just pulled it back and fired.
And Hobie has always been one of the most proficient racers in terms of in and out of obstacles, transitioning and not wasting time or energy. So Ryan Woods just finishing the hoist, but he's in 4th because 3rd is Mike Ferguson right now as he approaches the spear throw.
Mike Ferguson, he was our dark horse in Seattle. This is an athlete that I've had the opportunity to work with for the past year and a half. He is off the radar amongst a lot of these, compared to some of these athletes, but he can run with just about anyone, and he is a fantastic descender. So if he manages to hit his spear here, which if you remember in Seattle, he was in this spot and missed his spear.
Whoa, that's a tough miss for Mike Ferguson.
So there it goes. Now he's going to have to make up on the second half of this course.
30 burpees right here, and it seems like Mike has just one of those guys that hasn't been able to put it all quite together, and he has the ability to be one of the top upper echelon racers here. And look at Hobie just closing the gap on Ryan Atkins, coming out now 2.5 behind him. Woodsy's hit his spear throw. He's settled in 3rd.
Brian Gawiski having a good race in 4th right now. Killian might be 1 step ahead. So that's your 3rd, 4th, 5th. Killian, Gawiski, and Woods. And Mike Ferguson runs into a unique problem on this. The spear throws are all set up for right-handed throwers with the twine tied on one side of the target. Well, Mike's a lefty, and so when he gets up there, his rope has to cross across his body, and it just increases the chance that he has some torque and tug on the rope when he throws in. Until he figures out a better way to throw with his left hand.
Killian sticking the spear. So Robert Killian settling in about 5th position. What you found is Hobie on the rolling mud made a pass, and the rolling mud is deceiving. It's harder than it looks. It drains you way more than you expect. And Hobie made it a little bit swifter than Ryan. But what you found is now they're really pushing each other's tempo. I think they're both trying to gap the field right now and create some significant separation.
Yeah, and I think I have a feeling that these guys are going to be running neck and neck like this for the rest of the race.
And these are your 1st and 2nd place athletes in the U.S. Championship Series right now. And Ryan knows I need to win this race in order to have a chance to pull it back in that beast in West Virginia. Hobie knows if I win this race, it's over.
Yeah, and the fantastic thing about this for me as a fan of the sport is that we haven't seen a Hobie redline yet. We haven't seen him pushed, and Ryan intends to do that right now. We can clearly see Ryan's cards are on the table. He's not going to let Hobie rest one moment today.
Robert Killian exiting out of the barbed wire shortly.
And you see his technique there, too, for people watching at home. You'll see him roll a little bit and then switch directions. And if you've ever tried to roll in one direction for a very long time, it will make you extremely dizzy. And so he's employing technique to switch the way he's facing.
Angel Quintero with the miss on the spear, and he's devastated. He knows this is just not what I need when I'm already back. But 30 burpees for Angel Quintero.
Ian Hosick with a miss, and Matt Kempson just made his and ran off. So
right.
3 of the men we talked about before this have just kind of come together a little farther back in the race with some burpee misses.
Now, because all of these misses have occurred, and I think this is a lot to do with the shoulder fatigue of that sandbag carry earlier, it's very possible that you'll still see some interesting finishes in that 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th position. So is that Killian who just came out of the rolling mud. So there's a very large gap, and there's been no failed obstacles so far. So right now, it's possible that Killian is just very tired from the load he's put on himself over this past month. A lot of racing. He was doing a few other competitions over the course of the last week or so. He raced last weekend. He was competing all week long, and he might just be a little beat up because right now he doesn't seem to have that foot swiftness that Ryan Atkins and Hobie Call have.
Now, looking at this race, with this gap that's built up, Ryan and Hobie are free and clear for the moment, and then we have Ryan Woods, Brian Gawiski, a couple other guys sitting in there. That gap really has to be made up on a run because there are not any real failable obstacles, things that have a high probability of failure until the very end of this race. So this has to be done on the course or waiting until the very end, and that's a nerve-wracking spot for a racer knowing they're not going to fail anything for the next hour.
Right, yeah, and if there's 2 people you don't want to be faced at chasing down, it's Hobie Call and Ryan Atkins. And so they know they've got to make this up now.
That section we saw right here, Hobie and Ryan were attacking. Killian looked a little bit sluggish there. He's just a little disconnected from the race.
Very tentative, and he's isolated, which is not a good place to be either. When you have first and second place racing against each other and third place is alone with no one close in front or behind, he's in a not great spot.
Right. You need somebody else to push you. Like, I never like to race by myself because you don't get that push. You need the other people around you to play off of.
So we're here at the men's spear throw, and you're watching some of the other elite men wrapping up over here. Glenn Race coming through. Now, I'm not sure if he missed his spear, made his spear, but he was not with that lead group initially. We'll see if he can run himself back in. What we did see earlier was Matt Kempson and Mike Ferguson neck and neck. Mike, after doing his 30 burpees, Matt Kempson did not have to do his.
This is fascinating the way they set this course up with that double sandbag. Amelia, like you talked about, destroying the shoulder so that it's so much harder to throw. And you see the separation where guys who come in, it's a 5-second obstacle, but a 1.5 minute penalty plus the burpees. It's such a drastic penalty for such a small little lapse in your obstacle race.
Oh, and anyone has it. And anyone who's ever struggled or, with the spear throw knows that it's a death sentence in these races. And so these portions of the very intense obstacle, dense, specific parts of the course are so taxing on your heart rate. And really, we were discussing this yesterday. This is a sport in which you are pretty much redlining the entire race. If you are competing for a good hour, 2 hours, I mean, you are going all out. There is no recovery.
So the men have just hit the A-frame cargo net, and they're still deadlocked. It's maybe a second and a half between them. They're coming up a long fire road, and when they come out of this, there'll be one more little cargo climb, and then we go over a few walls in the bucket. And the bucket carry could be the game breaker in this race for these two men, because running-wise, neither seems to be able to break the other, but Hobie has stretched a slight gap on that A-frame.
His transitions are so smooth.
So smooth.
A-frame is one of those that it's not a difficult obstacle at all until you're head-to-head redlining, and suddenly just the give of the rope, it takes a little bit out of you every time you have to push your quads hard to get up the rope, and you come out of this more depleted than you went in, and you think that wasn't even supposed to be a bad obstacle.
And the climb up, you can take a couple seconds, and the descent, the guys who have mastered the roll down seem to pull a lot of time.
Right, because it's very easy, like I was saying with the A-frame car, you just get your foot snagged, and it'll cost you a couple seconds, something along those lines. But that is something that you see with Hobie, and something that you see with more experienced racers, is that they know how to transition between obstacles. And that makes, we've talked so much about how you can't afford to fail things anymore. It used to just be able that you could get through things clean and walk away with the win. But now you have to get things through clean and quickly and make the transitions efficiently.
So they're headed into this rock quarry, and it's going to be probably the most beautiful scenic scene of this entire day. But when they come down this lower road, they'll actually make a climb up that steep embankment onto the upper road.
When we talk redlining, for people who aren't familiar with what redlining means, everyone has this threshold that they sit at for a race, where if you stay underneath it, you're very comfortable and you can do it for a long time. And you cross over it, you're on borrowed time. You can only continue that for so much longer before you fall apart. And obstacle course racing makes you toe that line the entire time. And one little slip up, overexerting on a carry, having to do burpees, it crosses you over that threshold, and there's no coming back from that.
Exactly. You trash your quads on something in the very beginning, and then you're going to pay for it the rest of the race.
So what you have right now, Hobie Call has just made it to the cargo climb, and the gap is maybe 7 seconds right now, so by no means is this race over. It's going to be an interesting battle as they head into the heavy carry. Hobie is good at the bucket. I would argue Ryan is slightly better, but it's a negligible difference. So with a little bit more of this running to go, then the climbing is going to get a little more significant. They'll get some of the bigger hills of the day. Hobie looks very comfortable as usual.
You know, if he has, we've talked about how we've never seen him really redline before. I'm sure Hobie never looks like he's working hard, and you know he's working hard. I'm not sure if he just hides it very well, but he's always out there laughing, smiling, and just making it look effortless.
And for those who don't know, this hill is not a joke. It's not as shallow as it looks. It's a fairly significant incline. It's not huge. You can still run it, so you can still run fast, but it hurts.
Now, the gap was 14 seconds when they got to the top of that hill. And we talk about Hobie not looking like he's redlining. Mark was a 2:19 marathoner. Hobie was a 2:16 marathoner. He averaged 5 minutes and 12 seconds per mile for 26 miles. So a man who's capable of that type of running effort getting up here on these mountains and running 5:30 pace, 5:40 might actually be relatively comfortable at times for him.
Right, though what's interesting, if you listen to Hobie talk about his training, he says he runs no more than 15 to 20 miles a week right now. So it's one of those things that you ask whether it's just from years and years of mileage, if he can still tap into that.
Yeah, he ran 90-plus miles for 5-10 years straight, and that's a huge amount of base to draw from, but he also has kind of dialed in his training specifically to his needs as an athlete. He does a lot of high-intensity work, and his workouts are so specific towards obstacle racing that he has mastered that getting in and getting out with a high heart rate and recovering while running.
And you know, I wonder if this has anything to do with it at all, is that his training is very high intensity and specific, but his day-to-day, his job day-to-day is on his feet, is lifting, is moving, is installing. So you wonder if that actually helps and plays into it as well, just time on feet.
No, Ryan Woods has set himself in 3rd place, but Brian Gawiski is right with him as they're heading into some of the walls. You can see Hobie over the 8-footer right there. That's some of the big ones. And now it's coming up into Bucket.
Yeah, after Bucket then is where the mountain running of this starts. And Ryan Woods is, I believe, going to be unleashed at that point. He has maintained through some of his lesser strengths, and now he's heading into his areas of real strength.
Now, Robert Killian was sitting in 5th, but it just does not look like he has any legs today.
Yeah, he looks a bit slower and more sluggish than we're used to seeing him. But, you know, you never know. Sometimes those first few miles, you need to get in a groove and then open up.
I want to revisit your point about Hobie's workload.
Yeah.
Part of Hobie is a unique character. He does things his own quirky way, but Hobie does not like mornings. And so in addition to working on his feet all day, he works out almost exclusively after work. So all of his workouts, while they're high intensity and lower in volume, they're done on tired legs. And there's almost nothing more specific to obstacle work than getting used to working hard with a tired, fatigued body.
The gap at the Bucket Brigade right now is 20 seconds, and we're going to go down to Steve Hammond. Steve, what's happening down there?
Guys, what an epic race. So I am surprised that Ryan Atkins is still holding with Hobie, but now is the big Bucket Brigade. Now, guys, this Bucket Brigade is long. This is big. I can actually see Ryan right now, and I think he's going to be on a bit of a mission here. I'll tell you what, guys, just to let you know, just behind Ryan Atkins is Ryan Woods and Ryan Lewinsky, who's a surprise in this. He is lying in 3rd and 4th place. Ryan Woods and Ryan Lewinsky. They're probably about a minute off the guys on the bucket. You'll see them join them soon. But I'll tell you what, guys, what an amazing race that we've got for 1st and 2nd here.
Now, Brian Gawiski's putting on quite a performance out there, and we've known he's a great obstacle proficient athlete. But the question was, could he run with some of these top guys? Now he's going to get his shot to move past Woods on this bucket carry. And for Woods, the question is, can he continue to succeed through all of his obstacles? He tends to have that one obstacle that kind of blows up his day somewhere on the course, and we know Twister is coming up at some point.
Yeah, I think the test for him is we're looking towards the final gauntlet. You have Olympus and Twister and tire flip in a row. And the tire flip is going to be very tough, I think, at the end of that as well.
So Gawiski is filling his bucket right now, and he has got a very quick technique. And you saw he just made a great deal of time. He's now only about 3 seconds behind
Get rid of
Woods
some of that rock.
as they come into the bucket.
So as you talk, Brian's a very obstacle proficient athlete and always has been, but he faltered on the hill running and the running. But he's an athlete that he and I have kind of been working on his hill running and his descending for the last 6 weeks. He's prepared specifically for up and down hills. And Ryan Woods is a hill specialist. So coming off this carry, you're going to have a hill specialist versus someone who has been working specifically on hills. And Brian's kind of jogging a little bit up this hill while Ryan's walking.
He's got much more leg tempo to his climb right now. And for Woods, this is an obstacle he just needs to get through. You know, he's not going to be putting anybody in danger on this one. He's not going to be passing people. But if he can limit the damage that he's taking time-wise and not be hurting too bad, he's going to be in a good spot. Killian still managing to be there at a potential podium spot.
Oh yeah, Killian's got that fire. He's not going to let anyone shake him, even if he has tired legs. You know, he's going to give it his all.
Ryan Woods is not known for his carries, like we said, and especially bucket carry, but fastest split of the double sandbag in Palmerton was Ryan Woods. He had a faster double sandbag carry than Ryan Atkins did the year before or the prior year. which is kind of crazy.
Do you think that contributed to his blow up though?
He had already done 60 burpees at that point.
Wow. All right then.
It could have continued to it. Maybe that was the final nail in the coffin, but 60 burpees in, and he had the fastest double sandbag split of the day, which speaks to the work he's putting in training.
Exactly.
Now, Robert Killian going up that climb fairly smooth, and he looks like he's hurting badly today. But at the same time, he's still moving with some decent tempo. I mean, he's still 5th overall right now.
Yeah, and some people, you know, they just look at, for instance, Faye. When you see Faye running, she always looks like she's in so much pain, but that's just how she runs. Whereas Nicole, you don't see it on their face.
And we look at Lindsay Webster. She's another example of somebody who doesn't really show her agony, and yet you ask her after the race how she felt, and she'll tell you, oh, it was atrocious.
Exactly.
So right here, Mike Ferguson and that's Matt Kempson.
Yeah.
So we're looking at 6th and 7th position in the men's race right now. Kempson loves the heavy carries. He loves anything obstacle-based. He's very, very obstacle proficient as an athlete. And I think he's pretty pleased with where he's sitting right now, because there's a chance that he could reel in even those guys sitting in 3rd and 4th position.
He did last year. He mowed the field down in the second half of the race, and Mike Ferguson considers himself a carry specialist. But he's coming into this with some burpees in his legs. So what will happen when they hit this?
And you see Matt Kempson there, if you saw on the screen, you saw him use his hand tie to tie his wrists together to then grip this bucket. And I mean, that's it. We see a lot of athletes do that, because what you don't want to do is necessarily grip it with your hands. You want to grip it with your forearms.
And you want to squeeze the bucket to your body.
Right.
With your arms, but without having to necessarily use your hands. Interesting fact, or interesting observation, we still haven't seen the leaders coming back through the backside of the bucket yet. So they're still out there, still carrying. So their hands are getting crushed, and their backs. We're back down with Steve Hammond. He's seen the top 6 or 7 athletes come through. Steve, what are you seeing?
Hey guys, I'm just here with Glenn Reyes, who's just arrived at the buckets. He's just about to follow Matt Kempson and Mike Ferguson, who had a great first half of the race. Now, Mike Ferguson, he missed his spear, but he's plodded on up. Now, this is a real monster of a bucket brigade, guys. I have not seen the leaders yet. They're just out of sight from view of me, but I'm going to see them in a minute as they come down. And has Ryan Atkins going to blast past Hobie Cool? That's what I'm predicting, but I can't see what's happening yet. Actually, I just see them coming down, and they are neck and neck coming down, guys. It is awesome. Over to you, David.
So right now we have Ryan Atkins has moved into 1st, but it's not about who's in the lead right now. He's closed that 20-second gap, which was huge for him. More importantly, how is Hobie's running going to be after this? Because we know that Ryan can run after the heavy carries, and Hobie tends to as well. But you can tell if he lost 24 seconds or so that he's hurting on this carry. So Ryan dumping his rocks, and he's going to take off 1st. But watch how quick Hobie transitions out. If it's quick, you know he feels good. If he has a delay in a few walking steps, like Ryan is right now, then you know that there's going to be a little bit of a race and a bit of a battle.
And they have to head right back up the same hill here.
Hobie looks good. Hobie looks like that didn't hurt him at all. He's completely caught his breath. Ryan looks like it took a lot out of him, actually.
One thing we know about Hobie is he's not going to let anyone change the way he runs. No. He did that bucket at the exact speed he wanted to do the bucket, and now he's getting right back up into it.
Hobie is phenomenal at it's the quintessential running your own race, and it seems to work for him all these races.
And Ryan has been very good at that as well. I think neither of these athletes lets another athlete dictate the pace of their race, but now the key for Ryan is, okay, Hobie's been out running me a little bit. I have to maintain this contact, because there's, as you come into the rest of the race, there's no more heavy carries to save him. Like, he needs to run with him step for step for the rest of the race.
And there's no way when you're in a 2-person race like that, at that point, to not play off the other person. We say run your own race, but if you want to go out there and win, you're going to need to stay in contact with them.
So we've got a group with Angel Quintero and Ian Hosek, and they're just approaching that carry. And how long do we think that bucket carry took? Because right now, from the start of when Hobie did it, I have 7 minutes and 45 seconds on my watch. So probably a 7-minute bucket carry.
For the best in the world. For some of these guys, it might be 8 or 9 minutes. And it was back-breaking what Hobie just did to Ryan there. Ryan worked his butt off, gained 15 to 20 seconds on that carry, and by the top of the hill, Hobie had just run it right back. All that work was out the window.
And put all that gap right back in there. So now the question is, where are women?
I know.
And who's going to be in contact or in position to really take advantage and capitalize on a potentially 8-minute women's bucket carry? And you see Gawiski he has put a huge gap on Ryan Woods on that bucket.
It's incredible. And the great thing about it, the one thing I love about the bucket carry is that it gives you, as a racer, it gives you time like hacks to figure out where other people are. Oh, he looks very fresh. And so you start that bucket carry, you look at your watch, you see people coming down, and you have an idea of, you know, what your pacing is and how far. And that's what's just great about those out and backs.
It's one of the best things about the hairpin turns. I would say he looks incredibly good. You can see the pain, the anguish on Ryan Woods' face right now. He's like, when can I get back to the running, please?
Exactly.
When we ran the course yesterday, when we got to this bucket, I kind of smiled to myself because Brian has this one hill. He only has access to one real hill, but it is almost identical in terrain to this, and it's a half-mile long. So the last 6 weeks, he's been going up and down this hill with buckets, with rocks, with sandbags, and then running hard up and down it. So he is in his element right now. And Ryan Woods, is his face indicative of how his legs feel? Or is he go, oh, look at Killian coming back. Are they going to be able to run after this?
They both honestly look wrecked. And it's going to be interesting. Killian's got that waddle going on. So now Ryan has gotten rid of the bag. Now, for him, a guy that's struggled in some grip-based obstacles, with all that grip coming up, how blown are his hands? That's a big question.
Because you saw him actually gripping it with his hands.
And the women are actually approaching turquoise right now. And one thing to be on the lookout is look how many men they have passed.
Yeah.
And there's going to be men everywhere, an almost obstruction-like amount of men.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's something that women, as we run off 15 minutes after, you get used to kind of passing and whatnot. But the guys, for the most part, are very, very cordial about letting us pass. And they'll give you sometimes time hacks, too. You're like, oh, that woman is 5 minutes ahead of you. Go get her. Or you have no chance. I'm like, thanks.
That's kind of nice to get some time hacks.
Exactly.
Some updates.
Exactly.
And Lindsey Webster and Faye Stenning, 1 and 2, coming off of the Hercules hoist and into the spear throw. And the spear has been the Achilles heel for Lindsey Webster this year. Faye, I think she's gotten a bit better at it this year. Both of them last year. It would be interesting. You would have these battles 1 and 2, just like last year, and then they'd both miss the spear, and they'd both be doing burpee offs. Now, an opportunity for one of them to put a serious gap on the other.
As far as I know, Lindsey has hit 2 spears in her life. Now that is really low percentage for someone who is arguably the best in the world currently at what she does.
Faye Stenning has nailed it. Lindsey's missed. So now you're going to see probably a 2-minute gap form between them. Faye knows this is the time to just crush. She can put some serious time.
Oh, no, she isn't. Yeah, she
really needs this race. She's sitting in 5th position overall in the U.S. Championship Series after finishing 2nd last year, after losing to Lindsey by half a second at World Championships. And Rhea Coble sitting in 3rd. If she can hit this spear, it's going to be a lot of pressure on Lindsey Webster to run from behind for the rest of the race.
Exactly. And Rhea, you know, is a strong runner, and I think the rest of the court should suit her very well.
Go to your right. Go to your right a little bit.
Rhea can make this. Taking her time.
Really taking her time. Being deliberate. She nailed it. She's excited. No cartwheels today, but she is excited. So Lindsey, we don't know how many burpees in she might be. Maybe closing in on halfway through her burpees at this point, but
full miracle, nowhere to be seen yet.
The thing that's tough for Faye here is she has an opportunity to put a gap on, and she's obstructed by men. And it was for those watching at home, if you're going to ever run an elite race and you're getting passed by a woman,
that's how you
let
do it.
her by, just like
that.
that.
That's how you do it.
So Faye, because if Faye is trying to put a gap between Lindsey and herself, she cannot be waiting behind slower runners.
That was a great barbed wire she had. She was aggressive, and she's running as aggressive as we've seen this year.
She looks phenomenal. I mean, she really, I think, is hitting her stride with this course. And I know that she had her confidence a bit shaken earlier on in earlier races. But and there is Alyssa. You are not going to shake Alyssa because she is always going to be running there, sitting there. And then when we see them get to that bucket, I think that's when Alyssa kicks.
There's bucket, and we know about this grip gauntlet at the end. Alyssa's lurking. I'd be shocked if she doesn't find her way onto the podium. If she can hit this spear,
then
it's interesting. On the podium.
If she makes this, she's going to come out right about the time Lindsey finishes her burpees. So you're going to have a fresh, excited Alyssa and a depleted Lindsey. And as you found out in Palmerton, she can close a race out. She is a killer when it comes down to it.
Exactly.
Here's my she's not really a dark horse, but she was my favorite to take 2nd today.
Alyssa?
No, Rhea.
Rhea Coble.
Rhea, yeah.
So, and it's funny because we were talking earlier and we said, who's going to be good at this course? And I was saying, I think Faye Faye's got a really good shot at this. Just
This is a
look at
good
the
course
wheels
for her
she's got on
last
those
year,
legs.
yeah.
She ran well here last year. She took second here last year. And she had a good battle with Rose Wetzel before running away from her towards the end. They had like a gauntlet battle at the end.
She's running like Hobie right now. Her stride looks like that. She's getting up and out of things fast, but Rhea's closing down.
And people have been asking, why is Faye not as good as last year? And one of the things is a lot of the other women around her have elevated their performances. The other thing is Faye didn't come into the season with quite the base that she had the previous year, and she's been building that back up. And this looks like the old Faye Stenning. The power in that stride is back.
Well, we talk about what does it mean to be a professional obstacle racer. You know, she came in year one and just showed up fit and ready to attack everyone. And by the end of the year, she didn't have quite the Tahoe she wanted. And now she's making that next professional step, which is dividing her season tactically and deciding when is she going to come into her highest level of fitness.
Alyssa Hawley right now just a hair ahead of Lindsay Webster as she's rolling. You can see that Lindsay is crawling. They've got to weave their way not just past each other, but through all these men. And they're sitting in 4th and 5th position, respectively. And Lindsay just got her hair snagged, which is just the worst.
Just rip it out, girl. Rip it out.
So why?
Getting a little assistance from one of the men.
I've been there many, many times. It's horrific.
So this is smiles. Now her back. Oh, wow. This is a costly time situation for Lindsay. She's going to lose 30 seconds over the course of this.
Yeah, and let me tell you, it's embarrassing to admit, but this happens. And people wonder why my hair is so awful, and I tell them that it's from obstacle racing. So
I'm tactically bald.
I know. So I guess you have no pity. It looks like she took a digger in the face, too, as well.
Could you argue that this is one of the advantages of the women running behind the men right now? She's getting some assistance. She's getting some assistance getting out of this.
She's going to lose close to a minute on this.
Yeah.
This is it's devastating, and we've seen that. And for a lot of the men, you ask why they race shirtless. It's specifically because they hate getting their shirt snagged, but hair is a whole nother level of terrible.
And people wonder why, why do we wear what we wear when we obstacle race? It's because you almost need as little hindrance as possible. So
Lindsay Webster is just getting left behind as she sits there trying to get her hair untangled. It's wrapped as bad as I've ever seen it.
Alex Walker, who we have not talked about yet, who just rolled by, and Alex has been kind of under the radar. She hasn't run any of these series yet, but she is a legit competitor.
And so the reason is that Lindsay, her hair is not up anymore. She's got it's all just kind of free flowing, and that's the reason it snagged that second time when it pulled loose. We have Kristen Saad right now. She's sitting in 3rd position.
And the one good thing for Lindsay right now is that she
5th position
can get down the mountain faster than anyone else out here.
Exactly.
So if there is someone that can make up for this, which is looking like a catastrophic, random failure to have happened, hair getting caught on barbed wire, it's Lindsay. She can do this.
Yeah, no, she definitely is the strongest technical downhiller of any of these women. And for instance, Faye has admitted she does not like to run downhill. She does not like technical. She does not like the terrain. So she probably knows she needs a good cushion going in that last portion of the course.
And it could be argued what happened to Lindsay was a costly minute, but it was also an opportunity for her to completely catch her breath.
That was the other thing that I was going to point out, is that she was rested there, so she now has that fire, and she can hammer.
And we haven't really talked about this last descent yet. We've been hung up on something that's currently happening with the barbed wire and the hair debacle here, but this last descent is a 3-part descent. You start with this single track, very runnable, semi-steep where people can open up and go. And then you hit some little twistier switchback trails, but then it's bushwhacking. Bushwhacking meaning going through the forest with no discernible trail. And it's so slippery, and it's mossy rocks, and it's mossy stumps. And someone like Lindsay could put minutes right there.
And you're exhausted at that point. And that point is really just having faith in your feet and trusting that. And so for somebody like Lindsay who knows how to do that, that's great. I know Faye doesn't like the downhills. Kristen isn't like them either.
So right now we have Faye Stenning sitting in 1st. We have Alyssa Hawley up there as well. And right now, Rhea Coble sitting in 2nd or 3rd position. And right now you're watching the U.S. Championship Series. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The Spartan U.S. Championship Series will unfold over the course of 5 distinct races. Speed, strength, and endurance will be tested as contenders must prove they can conquer each Spartan race distance.
To win the U.S. National Championship Series, you have to be well-rounded. You have to be well at sprints. You have to be well at supers. You have to be well at beasts.
The difference between a sprint and a beast is quite significant. So if you're able to win both of those events, in my eyes, you're one of the fittest athletes on the planet.
In the end, racers will keep their top 4 scores, and the elite male and female with the highest cumulative point total will make obstacle racing history and be crowned the 2016 Spartan U.S. Series champion.
To be the champion, it'll take a level of focus and determination over months. Every race is gonna count. You have to be able to finish strong no matter what.
It's going to take a lot of what obstacle racing entails. Determination, focus, grit, a lot of constant drive.
U.S. Championship Series means a lot in the sport of obstacle racing.
We want to show the world that we're a legit sport with awesome athletes. We want to be a sport that people respect.
What's so important about carrying these weights, struggling and cheering on your fellow comrades? It's so important because it gives people the belief in themselves. I am a warrior, I am strong, I am resilient. That warrior mythos, it exists in every human being. But many of these first world things need to be erased to get to that warrior ethos inside. The race, the wind, the trees, the mud, working together, running together, struggling together. It takes away all the noise.
This movement transcends cultural barriers, and it's affecting people from every corner of the world. It occurred, this was much bigger than just a weekend event. This was a sport. In the last 4 years, we've seen this sport grow and grow and grow. It's been a hell of a ride.
The U.S. Championship Series is really starting to define the sport as a whole. We've got 6 races to test somebody over multiple distances. Who is the fittest across all of these domains? Who really is the best?
We're pitting the best athletes in OCR against each other. We're out there battling as hard as we can.
It's very, very competitive.
To win, it's going to take perfect performance.
Every race takes everything out of you.
It's about heart, grit. It's basically about human survival. It's about being tested and living up to that test.
And we are back at the U.S. Championship Series in Asheville. Race number 4, and Faye Stenning has come alive again. She is back in first position, but only by a hair because Rhea Coble is right on her heels, maybe about 15, 20 seconds behind.
Exactly, and they're going into that bucket brigade, and we know that that is a strong. Faye has worked and worked and worked on that, and so I think that will be very strong for her.
So it's interesting. They both had to just weave through about a dozen men. And now as they continue this last little stretch of running, they have a wall, and then they're back at bucket. And that bucket, we're looking at like 600 meters of bucket. I mean, we're talking about 7 minutes for the top men to finish that thing. So the ladies could be 8 minutes. I mean, maybe they finish in the same amount of time. The bucket's slightly lighter. But
right.
But when we're talking about the best carriers, and Faye's good at carries, but I wouldn't say she's like an Alyssa level carrier.
No, I would be interested to see Alyssa split on this for sure, because she definitely has those carries down down to a science.
This is kind of crazy that if you talk about an 8-minute carry, you could be looking at somewhere between 8 and 10% of the entire course time is taken up on that carry. So anything that's been done prior to this can really, like we've said, go out the window with just one carry. It changes your whole fortune of your race.
It's back and it's legs. And I think for me personally, it was always my back that was more, if it tightened up, I had trouble running and striding out. It was less the leg fatigue because at least you could catch your breath on some of these obstacles like the heavy bucket carry. But if your back starts to go, you lose everything.
Yeah, and I think for me, what I see is that the bucket carries, if you set that bucket down, you're done. So I don't, just pick it up and do not put it down.
We have Faye standing, looking back, just taking a peek at what's the gap. But she looks fresh still, which is really exciting because she's needed this race all year.
She has. Last year at this race, I had a blow up of like epic proportions. I was having a race. I came out of the bucket and decided I'm going to attack Ryan Atkins. And for the next couple miles, all I did was surge and surge. And finally, I broke one of us, but it was me. And I got to the top of the mountain in fantastic position, and people ate me up, down. I was so tired, I couldn't descend that treacherous terrain. Yep. And then I got down here, and embarrassingly enough, I failed the Hercules hoist. It had rained all night, just like today. It was heavy and slick, just like today, and it was full of grip obstacles. So any of these women, any of these guys could be positioning themselves for a blow-up like that, and people who are out of it still have plenty of time to wait for the person who's going to blow up.
Yeah, and we do have, at the end, that gauntlet of Olympus, twister, tire flip. That could, any failure there. At this point, Faye and Ray are separated by less than a minute, I would say. And you look at any set of burpees, and it could be a big lead change.
So Faye's going to fill her bucket. And the thing is, when the women come through, it's not quite that same substantial pile of rocks from before. It's not quite as easy to fill.
Right.
She's got good technique for it. And we'll see what the gap is. Right now, we're already at 20 seconds, and I haven't seen Rhea hit there yet. There she is. So 23 seconds is the gap right now.
That's we had 20 seconds between Ryan and Hobie at this point, and they ended it together. So by no means is Rhea out of this.
No, not at all. But you saw that the effort that Ryan Atkins had to put forth there, it hurt him. And afterwards, Hobie looked very fresh. It was almost like he took this opportunity, let Ryan catch up, but catch his breath, regain his legs. Ryan gave everything. Now Ray is in that same situation that Ryan was in. Should I push here? I mean, she's got incredible strength, her gymnastics background. She's so strong. And Faye, it's always funny. We always joke the bucket's as big as she is, but she's so fierce.
Exactly. And you see, man, this bucket carry murders people. You see people on the side resting on their knees, just doing anything you can to get through.
But she does a lot of heavy lifting. So her leg power is phenomenal.
Yeah, she had a race against Rose Wetzel in Seattle a year and a half ago where she was outrunning Rose, which is difficult to do, and then Rose was smashing her on the obstacles, and she went back to Canada, she went back to the lab and addressed her weakness and turned it into a strength.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so incredible that you see about the growth of obstacle racers, because everyone comes in with a set of strengths, and then you realize you have to fine-tune the weaknesses. And then sometimes you veer too far towards focusing on those weaknesses that you neglect your strengths. And for me, that's why training for obstacle racing is so much fun. And it's just this constant puzzle of trying to piece everything together.
It's like the reason that a lot of people transition into like triathlon, for example, except there's way more diversity to your training than even you get in that. There you have swim days and bike days and run days and brick days. But in obstacle racing, it's like, oh man, like I'm going to transition off of a running workout straight into a grip strength workout on the same day. Now I'm going to work on my heavy power, my strength endurance. It's such a variety, and you get to train so many elements, mobility, agility, everything, that you never get bored. It keeps you really engaged in your training.
And there's no one right way to train. There's no one skill set. And we've always talked about, for instance, when Rose and I used to run against each other all the time, we would always go back and forth. And Rose was an 800-meter specialist. I would run 100 Ks, and yet you would put us on an obstacle race, and we were neck and neck.
Very, very similar racers.
This shot's great because you see what the people in the bucket go up and see. You see, I'm heading around the corner, and I get to come back down, and it's such a mind game because you head around the corner, you continue up, and then they just send you off into the distance, and you can't see the turnaround. Now Anyone who overextends early,
Yeah.
You have double the distance you thought you had.
Now, Faye and Rhea just kind of making that turn on the corner.
And
You're
see Lindsay.
3 minutes into this bucket carry already.
Yeah.
So Lindsay's getting there to her bucket, and it's a 3-minute gap right now. So Lindsay's got her work cut out for her.
We see Alyssa right ahead of Lindsay.
And Alyssa's hoping for another opportunity to take down Lindsay twice in 1 year, so you know she's going to push hard on this bucket. Now what you also have is if it took 3 minutes to get up the first part of this climb, you're potentially on a 12-minute women's bucket carry. I mean, that is a devastatingly long carry.
It is a long carry.
And the only carry I can recall that kind of had that same length of time was World Championships last year, where they carried what seemed like half a kilometer. In that race, Zuzana came in and just stole 5 or 6 minutes off of people. And for those who don't know, Zuzana Kosomo, the 2-time defending world champion, great at the heavy carries.
Yeah.
But is there a woman in this field who could do that kind of damage to the rest?
If there is, it's going to be Alyssa.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Alyssa and Lindsay are both very, very strong in this. But, you know, we don't really see women being weak at this anymore. I mean, because everyone, you know what you're going to face, and you know that this is going to be something that you need to train for.
Yeah, this carry, how long is taking them? We had said maybe 8 to 10% of the race.
Yeah.
You're looking at 10 to up to even potentially 14% of the entire race is being spent on this one obstacle.
Exactly.
And Kristen Saad just making it over to the bucket carry right now.
Alex Walker right next to her.
Alex Walker.
Yeah.
It's a very, very tight race, like a bunch of battles within the race. So you have all these different races. So, you know, most of the average viewer is going to look at this and say, oh, who's first, who's in second? But really what's exciting about this sport is that you go 10, 12 athletes deep, and you still have all of these great battles going on because every point counts in the U.S. Championship Series.
How strong Kristen is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Kristen is a mother of 3, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, and she is out there crushing it, and it's pretty incredible. She is a very well-rounded athlete that's kind of flown under the radar, but is always hanging on in there.
Alex Walker as well. It's a cool battle we have where these two are relatively similar in terms of their profile. And right ahead we have the dichotomy up there with Lindsay and Alyssa, who are complete opposite ends of the spectrum, but they're both going through the same fight here.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when you're talking about that gap that we initially had, that 20-second gap between Faye and between Rhea Kobel for that first and second position, 20 seconds is nothing in the scheme of a 10, 12-minute bucket carry. It's literally nothing. And 20 seconds in terms of gap of carrying a bucket is like 15 yards. So it is going to be very tight for them. It's a mental game right now, the battle that they have. Now, Nicole Merkel's sitting back there, maybe, 8th position?
She had to have failed an obstacle.
She missed a spear, maybe? But she was not up near the front as it was because the first half of this course had more of that technical stuff.
Right.
Now it's a little less technical, the terrain that she's going to hit. So she could run herself back into this race if she has a decent bucket.
Yeah, the story we never know is, did someone tweak an ankle? Did someone roll going down one of these descents that we haven't seen? Is someone not operating at full capacity?
Or did somebody, or was there a you know, there are obstacles in there that we haven't seen, such as the Z-wall. It's very easy you take that one for granted that you can slip off of that one, and you have no idea, and it changes the entire dynamic of the race.
Especially with how wet and muddy it was early on. Now the sun's come up, and it's drying things out a little bit, which is very similar to last year. The sun out here dries it out very quick. But when it was slick and muddy early, if you hit something like a Z-wall, you could make a mistake. You could have a slippery rope on the Herc-Hoist.
And Amelia and I think this is something that the women have a distinct disadvantage on, is they get to the obstacles after 200 men have gone through it.
Exactly.
Any mud they've tracked onto it, they now have to deal with, which, you know, Hobie, Ryan, the first couple guys, Brian Gowiski, Ryan Woods, they don't have to have any mud on their obstacles.
Yeah, you know, we faced already muddy obstacles, but what the men do face is that if it is a cold morning, they have to knock the dew off of bars and the exactly. So, you know, it's helpful in some ways, it's a hindrance in other ways, but I guess that's just what makes it fun.
So we have yet to see a Faye Stenning and Rhea Kobel sighting on the return of this bucket carry. And so they've been out there now. It's been 7 minutes and 40 seconds since they started carrying that bucket, and still have not seen them crest this big hill.
And And I would argue that Faye is probably the stronger carrier of the two. So it should be interesting to see what comes through.
Now, just off camera, but you can't see, but he's coming right by us right now. Hobie Call is coming out of the woods in first place, and if we could get a split on that, maybe.
He's looking fantastic. He is. Yeah, we got a clock started on Hobie. There is no Ryan Atkins in sight.
No, and Hobie is headed over to the rope climb right now, and he is all alone, and he looks completely relaxed.
And he's hit the finishing gauntlet now. We have a rope climb, then we get Olympus, twister, tire flip, and then multi-rig fire jump. He is in the final throes of this, and Hobie does not fail grip obstacles in the past.
It would be very, very surprising to see.
Yeah.
And right now, coming out of the heavy carries, do we have Faye up there on the return? Hobie Call
Ryan Atkins
right
is
there.
coming in here. He is about a minute and a half, minute 15, minute 20 behind Hobie Call.
And there he is. You can see that Ryan Atkins is coming out of the woods. This would be a clinching moment for Hobie Call. He's got to get through Olympus right here,
Ryan's
but his
moving
gap
quick.
is over a minute right now. Ryan is cooking. He's moving pretty quick, but Hobie is smooth through Olympus so far.
He doesn't even use his feet.
No, he just rock climbs.
He just rock climbs across the wall.
He does a lot of rock climbing and bouldering and things like that.
He's going to
great
lose
at
time
it.
here. Ryan has a much more efficient method across this, and while Hobie may not lose energy because he's so strong, he's going to lose 5 to 10 seconds because of that technique he used.
Well, he has that 5 to 10 seconds to lose because right now, Hobie Call about a minute up, and he is close to locking up the U.S. Championship Series and not even having to race the final race of the series as he runs into the Yokohama tire flip.
So these tires are full of water today from all the storms we've had.
Very
if you
waterlogged.
can't get your finger under this, this is a place you're going to lose 2, 3, 4 minutes. And the game changer here is there are now stones inside of the tires. You have to return the tire on top of the stone. So if you flip the tire and you can't get your finger back up, you can't use the side of it now.
This is big. Hobie cannot get his fingers under. This is the third tire that he has now tried. He's going to have to get under.
This is very, very tough terrain to get your fingers under because of the grass. And okay, it looks like he's
got it under once.
We saw him in Seattle just fly through this thing.
Right.
And now he's a great technique here. He looks like he's going to try to keep his fingers under it all the way to the ground rather than let it fall. This is a very smart tactic.
Very smart by Hobie Call.
Very, very smart.
So now he comes in, he does his second flip. It's taking a lot out of him, though. I would argue he's going to lose a little bit of time there, but he's through. So Hobie Call off the Yokohama tire flip, and next up is Twister, the bridge, and a multi-rig. And if he can get through these without failure, Hobie Call is going to be your men's champion. He's only 1:16 in. We were talking before the race. We said a minute 20 was our guess for the men's race. It's going to be right around that time. So he's taking a reverse method through Twister, and it seems to be the way. We've been seeing more and more people attempting this technique.
Right, yeah.
I messed around with it last time, and it's the fastest hand-over-hand grip. If you're not skipping 2 grips, backwards is the way to go.
Hobie Call
He's
so
now just
smooth.
stairway to, or this bridge and a rig away from it. And now coming out of the woods in 3rd place still is Brian Gawiski.
Oh, this is amazing for him because Brian Gawiski loves obstacles. He loves grip strength. This is his best race of the year.
If he makes it through the tire, this is going to be by far the best race he's ever put together in his life.
I would argue that it agreed. Completely best of his entire racing career. Hobie Call is coming off of the stairway to Sparta, and now he is simply one multi-rig and a fire jump away from being your U.S. Championship Series champ at 40 years of age. And here he is coming across the multi-rig. Hobie Call onto the pipe and onto the rings.
Ryan Atkins was cruising right through. He used the forward hand-over-hand method. He's so strong that both of these guys, their grip is so strong that it really doesn't matter the technique they use as long as they're comfortable with it.
And there he is. Hobie Call has done it. Your defending world champion at 40 years of age, competing in his first U.S. Championship Series. Took only 4 races, and he has locked up the U.S. Championship Series.
Absolutely incredible.
A dominant showing. He doesn't even look tired.
No, the speed at which he was running was incredible. And now it looks like we're back at the Woods, and we see Ryan Woods actually coming out in 4th. So chasing down Brian Gawiski.
So Ryan Woods exactly about where we thought he would be. The shocker of the day is not that Hobie won. It's not that Ryan Atkins is here with an opportunity to finish 2nd and really reaffirm his 2nd overall position in the U.S. Championship Series. The shocker is Brian Gawiski, putting together the race of his life, pulling a Glenn race.
And this tire is still looming. Ryan Woods has entered the festival grounds in podium position before and
Robert Killian
not finished it out.
Exactly.
And what you guys can't see right now is Robert Killian exited the woods to the final gauntlet. He's in 5th. So right now, you could see a problem on the tire flip for Ryan Woods that pushes him out of that 4th position, as Ryan Atkins, obviously disappointed a day after his birthday, coming in and taking a 2nd place to Hobie Call once again.
Well, yeah.
A very well-earned 2nd place. But Hobie Call just looks like a man unbeatable right now.
Ryan's got 1 flip, and he is struggling to get flip number 2.
Brian Gawiski on the flip. He needs this flip. And what kind of damage is this going to do to his hands when you talk about the multi-rig coming up next? He's got to get under it. Now you can see the technique that Hobie used, lowering it onto his hands after the first flip.
Right.
Really paying dividends.
Exactly. If you can try and jam a foot under there, anything to try and get some leverage.
Proud Canadian taking 2nd place in the U.S. Championship Series.
Ryan is the perennial bridesmaid he has been 2nd more time in these races than I think anyone in history. And someday, he will be standing there on top.
Right. He won his fair share of U.S. Championship Series events last year, and he will get his shot at World Championships, and I imagine he'll have his shot in West Virginia, because I don't know if Hobie will race, but right now, Gawiski is having his struggles. He's got to get this tire up. He cannot burpee this out. He's lost too much time here, and Woods in a similar situation.
At this time, whoever starts their burpees first is going to win. So Brian needs to knock him out right now because Ryan.
Well, because then what's interesting is Killian is coming up right now, and we know that Killian generally does well with this. And
he
so
has one in his backyard.
The question is that will this give Killian the opportunity to break through? He could break through in the top 3.
So right now, Ryan Gawiski taking burpees on the tire flip. And the question was, is that a mandatory completion obstacle, or is it a burpee obstacle?
It's a burpee obstacle.
So
will Ryan get his hands
If
under?
Ryan Woods can get his hands under this thing and get one good lift, he's got his shot. He's going inside the tire to try and give his fingers one little bit of gap.
Which you can't do.
Oh.
If rule book states you have to flip it from the outside,
So
because we had a case last time where someone stood inside it, kind of deadlifted, and then they flipped it over onto themselves.
Oh,
they couldn't get
could injure themselves really badly. And we've had a few rules implemented for that exact reason. As Mike Ferguson comes out of the woods, he's in 6th position. Oh, these tires are what, 400 pounds?
400 pounds.
400-pound tire, and it's more about the lack of tread and grip. These tires are flat to the ground. You can't get your fingers underneath them.
Exactly. If you can get your fingers up, you can lift them.
So Robert Killian could come in here and steal 3rd position still.
Exactly.
If he has a perfect tire flip, and it's his.
With twister and rig left, these guys are trashed from the tire. They're trashed from their burpees, and now they have to go through our 2 hardest grip obstacles.
Exactly, and we know that, at least for Ryan Woods, that's not necessarily his strength either. So at what point do you say, screw it, I'm taking burpees?
Right now, apparently,
exactly.
because Ryan Woods has just said, I can't lift this.
As the competitive athlete, you're watching Brian Gawiski do burpees, and you're saying, I just have to get this. One of these reps has to work. But the analytical side would say, if I can't do it the very first time I touch it, get these burpees out.
So Ryan Woods waited a little too long. Can Robert Killian get the 2nd flip? Interesting that both of these men in front of him got the 1st flip but could not get the 2nd. Now we should be looking at Robert Killian attempting to get this flip and steal this race. He's going to have a battle with Gawiski either way. But he is straining. Gawiski has finished his burpees. He needs to hustle in, because if Killian gets this flip, it's going to be a battle to the finish.
Burpees as well. So the first tire you flip
for Killian.
is your choice. You get to choose the perfect grip. You get to find one that you get your hands under. But where the tire lands after that first flip is luck of the draw, which is why we see why Hobie Call is so great. He chose a technique that he didn't have to worry about where his hands fell. His hands fell underneath his tire.
He's always been a silent assassin tactician, Hobie Call
and
has.
you see Brian Gawiski now, his hands are wet because that grass is wet, and he's going on his twister. You saw him drying it off on those platforms, which is really smart.
Look how quick he is through the obstacle. He's one of the most obstacle proficient racers that we have out here on the circuit, and I just can't see him making a mistake. He's just far too talented at this particular obstacle. It was shocking to see all 3 men fail at the tire flip right there, but Gawiski right through twister.
It may not even impact the final standings here unless Woods falls off here. The crazy part is that Brian's at a point where it's not a race anymore. It's about completion. He could stand at Twister for a minute and just wait for his hands to come back. It doesn't look good on TV.
Though there's always, if there is a missed burpee, you know, there are cameras, people are counting, there are penalties. So
for those at
you
home.
miscount, and I'm telling you, when you have to count your own burpees and you're exhausted, it's hard. I always do 1 or 2 extra to make sure that I don't get a 30-second penalty.
Yeah, for those of you at home, it is 30 seconds for every missed. It's maybe not even a question of honorable or it's just a mistake that sometimes happens.
Well, we saw Brian started out hunched over on his burpees. That's something that it's a judgment call of the official. He could say he didn't get vertical, and he could no rep every burpee, and now he's out of it. You get 9 burpee that you can get no rep on in 30 seconds per no rep, and then at 10 you're just DQ.
So right here, Brian Gawiski, if he can make it through the last couple rings off this pipe on the multi-rig, will be your 3rd place finisher in the Asheville Southeast Showdown.
What a great race for him.
It's the best race of his life. It's his first podium in the U.S.
smile.
Championship Series. And this is a guy who is rising in the series right now. He has got a lot of talent, and he's going to be around. He's going to be a factor.
He's been running for a while. He has experience. He has always been kind of there and lurking, and this is a breakout race for him, and it's so incredible to see.
He's a guy who was always a gamer, but he didn't train the way top-level athletes train, and he left his job this year to do this. He has some time. You know, he was in the military. He's done some other things. He took the summer to just train, and it's awesome to see when people take a chance in life and go after something and they're rewarded.
Well, Robert Killian coming across Twister right now, and did you guys see Ryan Woods?
I think he's doing burpees right there.
Is that Ryan Woods?
That is Ryan Woods doing burpees.
So if Robert Killian can get this, he's stealing 4th, and again, Twister costing Ryan Woods at the end of the race.
So now he's hanging on for 5th. We saw Mike Ferguson, who was coming up behind him. And Ryan Woods, you know, is saying, look, I can still get on that extended podium. I can still be there in 5th place. I just got to get through this.
And Mike Ferguson, in contrast, has done his burpees at a spear. And if his arms have recovered, he can steal an NBC podium despite his burpees.
Which is very rare that you can do 30 burpees at a spear and still steal its podium. But it looks like Ryan Woods is still, if he can get through the multi-rig.
No, it's not the most challenging. It's rings and a pipe.
There's no softballs.
It doesn't account for how
tired
tired your
arms.
He
forearms
just did
Wet
60 burpees in quick succession, too.
After running an 8-mile race.
This sums it all up.
Yeah.
Robert Killian is maybe the toughest man I've ever met in the middle of a race. And he's walking to the rig because this course has been a beatdown of a course, and he has to get through this.
For him, he must. And doing the matching technique is not necessarily the most energy efficient technique, and I know he likes to do it, but you can see there's a little bit of fatigue here. Don't let your feet touch the ground, Robert.
Yeah.
Last year, his feet touched the ground. There was some controversy.
It's hard. He got long legs, but he's going to lock up 4th position. Robert Killian, still a factor in the U.S. Championship Series, still holding on to 3rd position and probably coming close to locking that in for the season. But right here in 5th, Ryan Woods, just another gutsy 5th position, but another heartbreak.
Continues to prove that he might be the class of the field as a trail runner, and he's got to put it together. He's so close, and we love Ryan. He's one of the favorites among the racers on the circuit. He's like a Glenn Race, where everyone loves the guy. And now that I'm in the booth, I'd love to see him put a race together when I'm not in there.
Exactly. It's very easy to cheer for somebody when you're not competing against them.
Because you know how long he's been on the grind to put this sport on the map.
So
exactly, and he works full-time as a chiropractor. You know, he's doing everything.
We're seeing a few guys come out of the woods. We had Matt Kempson earlier, maybe a few minutes ago. Now Mark Batris, Ian Hosek, all coming in together in this final gauntlet. So not the day that either of them were hoping for, especially for Mark Batris, who we assumed would be a little closer to the front.
That may just show that this course was much more technical and gritty than we initially assumed.
Yeah, and you know, I guess that depends on, you know, how good of a technical runner is Gawiski besides just all-around athlete. And we thought this would be an all-rounders course, but it turns out that running was not the only thing that factored in today.
Yeah, it shows exactly what we talked about. This is the course that you have to have every skill set together.
And so, guys, we have the legend, their 40-year-old U.S. Championship Series champ, Hobie Call, with Steve Hammond right now. Steve.
Well, here's the man himself, Hobie Call. High five, dude. Oh my word, you are the US champion over the whole series. How's that make you feel, buddy?
Oh, I can't lie. It's very exciting, very exciting. It's been a lot of hard work, and to pull it off early, now it's just pure party time.
So we got Hobie Call down here at the finish line, and he had an incredible showing. And again, I'm not sure he was ever redlined. I'm not really sure he was ever challenged. He had a moment where he was pushed by Atkins, and then he just ran away.
Now, one thing we know about Hobie is that he races hard to the finish no matter what, but what I'm most excited about is to find out what a Hobie Call party looks like.
I know.
I picture a lot of wheatgrass shots.
Exactly, a lot of wheatgrass shots. I mean, it's funny because I laughed when he said that, because Hobie always looks like he's having a good time out there and partying. So it's pretty incredible to see somebody who competes with such a passion and a smile.
There's a little bit of showboating from him, and he's always been a little bit of a showman.
And it's done out of pure joy.
Exactly.
It is, and it's done in a polite way, which is, I think, the big thing, which is it's not an egotistical, it's not a obnoxious thing. He's just literally having fun. He's been consistent on that since year one when he first came out here in, 2011?
Yeah.
And we first saw him.
Hobie is the original icon of the sport.
He is. We call him the Michael Jordan of the sport.
Exactly.
And so
his comeback just went a little better.
You know, and Ryan Atkins is clearly the heir apparent, but Hobie is not ready to pass that torch.
No.
Right now, coming over the wall right here, we have Faye Stenning, your women's leader.
This obstacle is deceptive. It looks relatively straightforward. You
Stairway
get
to
up over the
Spartan.
wall on Stairway to Sparta, and then you just climb a slat ladder up. But this is a hip cramper here. A lot of people who are depleted and fatigued when they get up to this, their hips start to cramp and their hammies start firing a little bit. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, and you have to pull yourself up over that wall at first. And
And they are still going up. That's the big thing. They're still climbing. So we have from one leader back to your men's champion of the day and your men's champion of the series. Hobie Call is with Steve Hammond right now.
Well, I am with the man himself. He is absolutely ecstatic because he is the champion of the US. Absolutely fantastic, dude. Where did you win it today, did you think?
Oh, well, it's always the whole race as a whole, but I'd say after the bucket brigade, when we hit those long hills, I was just able to pull away there and never gave it back.
Well, I saw you on the buckets, and you stayed with Ryan Atkins, who is, we know, a powerful bucket brigade. It was massive. It was a really long bucket. You stayed with him. Were you surprised at yourself for staying, or was that due to the training that you've been doing?
That's definitely my training. I train to be as strong as I can for my size so that I don't lose ground on those sandbag carries and bucket brigades. So, no, it went how I was hoping it would.
And going down that last hill after the log carry, you were absolutely flying, coming in. Tell me about the tires. What was going on there again? Same as Palmerton?
Oh, goodness. I mean, they're heavy, but it's really just about getting your hands under them. So I was going through my third tire, finally get my fingers, and I look over, and there's Ryan coming up to the tires. I said, oh, crap. So it's like going down the back end. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to keep my fingers under these so I don't even have to try that again. So I just went down with it and right back up and managed to just hold that lead and all the way in.
Well, fantastic. You are so dominant here, and you're absolutely awesome. Is this really your swan song? Are we going to see you next year? Come on.
Well, I have no plans of racing for the podium next year, but if I can make it to events and just come for fun, that would be marvelous.
Well, I don't believe you, but anyway, fantastic job, mate. You've got the World Championship to look forward to, and are you going to go in that with the same attitude? I mean, you've got West Virginia. You're going to run West Virginia?
Yeah, I'll be in West Virginia. It's West Virginia Championships. Those are the 2 races left, so 100% in each one of them.
Well, that is great to hear. Mate, you are an absolute asset to this sport. Well done, mate. Shake my hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
David, what an awesome atmosphere down here. Back to you, dude.
Thanks a lot, Steve. And, we've been watching Hobie do this since 2011. And every year, everyone kept saying in the beginning, well, is he really that good, or is there just nobody out there that's come out and challenged him? And he has just defeated all comers. It does not matter who comes his way. Maybe someone steals a race from him here or there, but he's always the best out there.
Yeah. But you do have to realize is that Hobie these past few years did not race that much. And so I think he came out to a few races, didn't run the entire circuit. So people in some are like, well, we don't really know if he still has it.
They wrote him off.
He's still got it. He's still got it.
There have been rumors of Hobie's demise since 2013.
This is
the
true.
first time any of us ever beat him at a race, it was at this race down in Florida where there was like 0.7 of a mile of swimming, and Hobie couldn't swim. It's like, that's it. We found his weakness. Then he comes back, he teaches himself to swim. Later on, he starts getting outrun by some of these new guys. Well, Hobie's lost his foot speed. He gets back on the grind, he develops his foot speed. He just keeps adapting and excelling.
I would argue that he is the most cutting-edge training of anybody out there. He's just found ways to put himself in positions to win and to improve his training and sharpen those tools that he had. And he's done it efficiently and with very little time. Like, he continues to work full-time while a lot of these guys are racing full-time. That's also an incredible feat that doesn't get mentioned.
I also think in some regard there is an argument that having the working full-time and the limited training prevents you from getting into a state of overtraining, which is very easy to do when you're doing this full-time as a professional athlete. So it could be an advantage to him in a way.
It is, and Hobie is an interesting athlete because he designs his own training, and he is the king of micro adjustments. He and I have talked a lot about his training, and he follows essentially the same plan every year with just micro little tweaks to it. It's not like he gets to a race and finds this weakness and scraps it all and starts over. He takes what's been working and he just fine-tunes slightly, and he knows every little millimeter of everything he's doing in his training.
And I think that's so important to not panic. When something goes wrong in a race, you don't completely throw the baby out of the bathwater and like completely readjust. You just make those fine micro tweaks.
The other big thing is he is extremely precise with his nutrition. And you'll see that Hobie has specific drinks that he drinks at specific times of day, and that even includes waking up in the middle of the night to drink them and then go back to bed, and he does this every single day.
Speaking of baby with bathwater, Rose Wetzel, congratulations on the birth of your first child.
Oh yeah, Rose, and we will have some photos to put up there for Rose's baby, and we know she's excited. She had a death race, sort of a gogi of a birth.
Labor.
Yes, a labor, 56 hours. But we're going to be headed out for a little break. When we come back, we will wrap up the women's action with Faye Stenning still out in front, Rhea Coble and Alyssa Hawley right there, and Lindsay Webster chasing. Stay with us.
The Spartan U.S. Championship Series will unfold over the course of 5 distinct races. Speed, strength, and endurance will be tested as contenders must prove they can conquer each Spartan race distance.
To win the U.S. National Championship Series, you have to be well-rounded. You have to be well at sprints. You have to be well at supers. You have to be well at beasts.
The difference between a sprint and a beast is quite significant. So if you're able to win both of those events, in my eyes, you're one of the fittest athletes on the planet.
In the end, racers will keep their top 4 scores, and the elite male and female with the highest cumulative point total will make obstacle racing history and be crowned the 2016 Spartan U.S. Series champion.
To be the champion, it'll take a level of focus and determination over months. Every race is going to count. You have to be able to finish strong no matter what.
It's going to take a lot of what obstacle racing entails. Determination, focus, grit, a lot of constant drive.
U.S. Championship Series means a lot in the sport of obstacle racing.
We want to show the world that we're a legit sport with awesome athletes. We want to be a sport that people respect.
What's so important about carrying these weights, struggling and cheering on your fellow comrades? It's so important because it gives people the belief in themselves. I am a warrior, I am strong, I am resilient. That warrior mythos, it exists in every human being. But many of these first world things need to be erased to get to that warrior ethos inside. The race, the wind, the trees, the mud, working together, running together, struggling together. It takes away all the noise.
This movement transcends cultural barriers, and it's affecting people from every corner of the world. it occurred. This was much bigger than just a weekend event. This was a sport. In the last 4 years, we've seen this sport grow and grow and grow. It's been a hell of a ride.
The U.S. Championship Series is really starting to define the sport as a whole. We've got 6 races to test somebody over multiple distances. Who is the fittest across all of these domains? Who really is the best?
We're pitting the best athletes in OCR against each other. We're out there battling as hard as we can.
It's very, very competitive.
To win, it's going to take perfect performance.
Every race takes everything out of you.
It's about heart, grit. It's basically about human survival. It's about being tested and living up to that test.
And we are back at the Southeast Showdown from Asheville, North Carolina at Black Mountain. And we have just had a lead change in the women's race. Rhea Coble has now taken the women's lead. Faye Stenning sitting in second. And is it Alyssa Hawley maybe in third right now? We'll find out shortly as they come out of the woods.
And this is interesting. This is what I thought may happen, is because this very last section is the very technical descent, and Faye admittedly does not like those, and those are not her strengths. So we have a lead change with Rhea in the lead, and you can see that she was just a stronger descender.
Now we have a crazy gauntlet coming up, so literally anything could happen. But Lindsay Webster's going to need to have the descent of her life if she wants to claw her way back into this race.
The interesting thing here about the women, unlike the top men, is that almost all of them get through all the grip obstacles. You know, occasionally you have one person fall off, but like Monterey, Seattle, they all just kind of cruise through the twister and rig.
Right.
And we'll see where this is going to go, because again, you have that tire flip first, which could put a little damage to the fingers, put them in a little bit of stress, and then we'll get into some of the other significant grip obstacles.
Is the tire flip as difficult for the women today as it was for the men?
No.
Not certain.
No, the women's, I mean, we'll see in terms of getting the fingers underneath it, but I think by and large as a generalization that the women's tire is 200 pounds, the men's is 400 pounds. So in comparison, the men's is just that much more of a struggle for most guys.
I just have a hard time believing that the men are twice as strong as the women, and therefore at twice as heavy obstacle.
I think
it's an imbalanced one.
I think if it was going to be exactly balanced, it'd probably be the women's at like 275.
I was going to say 300, but maybe a hair under. Yeah.
Right.
So the women seem to cruise through this obstacle a little more than the men do. The men, you could see the struggle as men in positions, 3, 4, and 5 all failed the tire flip. And when have we seen that before?
Well, and you have to think that some of these guys are on the smaller side too. But Hobie has to be one of the smallest.
Hobie's power to weight ratio is one of the most incredible I've ever seen.
But he's also one of the smartest athletes out there, because he was the only one that kind of set that tire down on his hands when he flipped it over.
He is a smart.
Steal that from him.
We say the tactician. It's a really great move. You'll see a lot of guys will watch the live stream and take that with them for the future. And as has always been the case, Hobie has always been innovative in his technique. He was the first to roll the barbed wire. He's the first to do this.
I mean, we had an obstacle named after him for a long time.
The Hobie Hop.
Exactly.
Which doesn't exist anymore, but was a great obstacle. Now, the women's standings right now, Lindsay Webster in the series is ranked in first, but she is not even in your top 3 right now. Alyssa Hawley in second, Rhea Coble in third. And for Rhea, this is an enormous opportunity to move up a podium spot in the U.S. Championship Series and really close that 6-point gap with Lindsay Webster.
And the same with Alyssa. And so we'll see coming in this gauntlet at the end is that of the women that are coming up, Alyssa is the strongest technically on these types of grips obstacles. I have actually never seen Alyssa fail a rig or fail twister. Rhea, Faye, I have seen them fail both of those, and so you never know. It is anyone's game still when we see them emerge, to see what kind of gap it is when they emerge from the woods.
The best thing that could have happened for Alyssa is for Faye to win today, because she is someone that's below her in the points and can't knock her off it.
So right now, we're looking at the map. And Rhea Coble is approaching the inverted wall, and then next up will be the rope climb, which is right behind us. So we'll have a first-hand view, if you guys don't, of the athletes coming straight out of the woods right behind us and into the final finishing gauntlet. So of failable obstacles left, we're looking at rope climb. You're looking at an opportunity, Olympus,
Twister,
tire flip apparently, and then the multi-rig.
I mean, there are potentially 5 failures in there.
This could happen, and most of these obstacles are based around grip strength. So you're going to find there could be some issues that happen just over general fatigue, over overusing this muscle over and over and over at the end of a long day.
Like we saw with Ryan Woods, oftentimes when there's a gauntlet of grip obstacles, one burpee leads to another set. You just can't recover and get back on the obstacle.
It's very, very hard to come off of 30 burpees. We saw it in Palmerton. You saw people do burpees at the spear throw and then approach the rig and not be able to do the rig because you're incredibly taxed.
So now, right now as we sit here, men are still coming out, some of the elite men still coming out of the race, but the women are close to this final gauntlet. Rhea has apparently got a 50-second lead over Faye Stenning and apparently Lindsay Webster back
her way
in the race.
You can't ever count her out. You can never count out Lindsay because she is going to fight.
She can descend.
And she can descend.
And 50 seconds might as well be 5 seconds because it's not enough to get a set of burpees done.
No,
unless you have 2 minutes, you are not free and clear.
And on this particular descent, as we saw last year with some of these races, this is where the gaps close dramatically. Hunter McIntyre took over a minute from Robert Killian just on the second half of this long descent that the women are on right now. So really, it's any woman's race. Faye Stenning could still potentially find herself in first, but it's going to really come down to obstacle proficiency at this point.
Lindsay has struggled on Twister, and the other women haven't as much. She needs to nail it to get back up there.
And we see now Rhea has come into visual, and she is running strong. She is running very, very strong, and as she approaches this last final gauntlet, and this is her playground. She loves this stuff.
We talk about Hobie and Ryan Atkins be like the tacticians of the sport. We're starting to find out that Rhea, she's great at slow playing her race, never exceeding her threshold, and just staying in it the whole time. And now it's paying off with the lead coming into this final gauntlet.
So she's got a very nice gap. We don't have another female in sight yet. And Rhea's going to come right behind us. You'll see her start to head up the rope climb. The women are coming out of the trees, and then it is open, wide open gauntlet of obstacles. Second place right now coming up, it's Lindsay Webster, isn't it? No.
Wow. Yeah.
Lindsay Webster
that
in
is
second.
Lindsay Webster. So something has happened in the shakeup that she has just overtaken and overpowered down those descents.
Oh, it's an incredible effort. Now, Rhea Coble on the rope climb. For her, she's still got to move quick, but she has to be deliberate.
Exactly.
Right now, the gap is 42 seconds to Lindsay Webster. No, it is Lindsay Webster. Sorry. So it is 42 seconds to Lindsay Webster. Rhea Coble looking very smooth up the climb. She doesn't even need to use her legs.
No, and I asked Rhea about that, and she goes, she finds that her feet get in the way, which is incredible. The amount of strength she's using, though at the same time, how does that affect her later on?
Faye Stenning now a minute 4 seconds behind Rhea Coble. So she's only about 20 seconds behind Lindsay Webster. This is any woman's race right now.
Very, very tight race. I don't think we've seen something this close in the past few races and with this finishes.
And with this many obstacles, like anyone who's, even if nobody fails, if somebody is just good at each one of these obstacles and someone else is deliberate and takes their time, that gap can shrink dramatically to the point that someone could get caught.
Exactly. We saw how Alyssa caught me in Palmerton, is that I didn't fail anything. She was just much quicker and much better at those obstacles.
So it's 30 seconds now, the gap back to Lindsay in second, and 52 seconds back to Faye. So again, they are all in burpee range. This race is not anywhere close to over.
And Lindsay has begun Olympus, and Rhea is just wrapping it up. So it's that close, and Faye now making her way over to Olympus. So what you'll find is really whoever's quickest on this can make up massive amounts of time, and Lindsay is just eating up that lead that Rhea had.
Wow.
Rhea has finished it safely, but she's got to hurry now. Now it's actually a battle.
Exactly.
This could be, once again, the women's field, so much parity. We're going to have one of the closest finishes of the year again in this women's race, and Lindsay Webster in the mix right there as usual.
And now Alyssa Hawley, we get a glimpse coming out of the woods here. She's in fourth place, still with the scent of podium sitting right there because someone could fail this.
Exactly, and Alyssa is not known for failing obstacles, so if there's somebody that could power through this and capitalize on that, it would be Alyssa.
So right now, you're looking at really basically just a one flip difference between Rhea and Lindsay. And again, trying to get those fingers underneath to get that flip. The first flip is not the hard one. It's the second flip that's much more difficult. But right now, you can see that it's 13 seconds about the gap right now that you have between the two of these racers.
Rhea is sitting here having put all this work in, 99% of her races done, and it is agonizing to have the thought that you could possibly let it slip away, despite all the hard work you've done.
Exactly. Because
the 50-second gap shrunk to 42 out of the woods, shrunk to 13 now as they head into Twister.
She's walking in. Lindsay's probably not going to walk in. She's going to run all the way up to it if she
values
that lead.
And this is the thing, is that Lindsay lost Seattle on this obstacle right here.
what Lindsay's going to do is actually going to wait and see if Rhea drops, probably. See if she fails, and then, or if she sees Rhea fail at some point, Lindsay will drop to then burpee.
I would be shocked if Rhea failed this obstacle, but I would also I could see her fail to gain time, possibly even lose time here. You can see Lindsay at the bottom making her way through a little bit quicker. Rhea's being deliberate but safe.
And Lindsay was doing the backwards technique, then you saw her kind of flip around.
And now you're seeing, I think, possibly a tie coming out of this final obstacle. Lindsay rang the bell first. Lindsay Webster has moved into first position after a disaster on the barbed wire, and the gap is now 5 or 6 seconds, and her husband, Ryan Atkins, running right along beside her.
This was a great example here of risk-reward.
Exactly.
Rhea went on there and matched her hands and went with the sure thing. Lindsay kind of just said, you know, forget it, I'm taking a chance. She skipped hands, and it's paid off immensely right here. Do her hands have anything left for the rig?
This women's race is now coming down to the multi-rig. Who can get through the multi-rig with no mistakes? And this one has cost Lindsay Webster in the past. Rhea Coble needs to hustle. She cannot be this casual anymore.
Exactly, and I mean, all that Rhea can do right now is just bank on a mistake by Lindsay. But this rig is easier. It's way more simple than what we've seen. We saw in Palmerton. So I have a good feeling Lindsay should be able to get through this, no issues.
This is a concentration rig. If she is focused on what she's doing, her strength is not going to be the issue. It's about, is she looking to the finish line yet?
And Rhea Coble just not taking that opportunity that she had to steal this victory. So right now, Lindsay Webster a few rings away. She's rung the bell.
She is.
What an amazing comeback by Lindsay Webster.
Wow.
She steals another win in Asheville, and she has really solidified her position in the U.S. Championship Series with her second victory of the year.
And after losing a minute plus stuck in that barbed wire, and she came out of that, what, in 4th or 5th place?
She did.
Several minutes back.
And she never panicked. But you know what? This is the first time I've seen her totally crushed before.
This is the best comeback we've seen this year. That was fantastic. It was a show of grit, and she was also calm. She remained calm and took care of business.
So Alyssa Hawley right now in the 3rd women's position right now on Twister. Rhea Coble taking 2nd. Nice little throw of water from Donahue.
Yeah. Exactly. And what a race by those two. And you know, for Rhea, it's got to sting a little bit to be out there, to give it your all.
Here's Faye Stenning in 3rd.
Faye
coming across the line.
Yeah.
A great run from Faye Stenning. She needs to be really proud of that. It didn't finish as she'd hoped, but she gave everything. Look how toast she is.
I know she's happy to be climbing. She's steadily climbing up those spots on the podium. You know, she was sitting in 4th and 5th for the first few races, and nabbed a 3rd on this one, so she's heading in the right direction.
And she had that bittersweet taste where she was in 1st for so long, but really I hope she can take away from this that she didn't have a good descent because she doesn't like descents, but the part of the race that she had to work on, which was running, climbing, she nailed that today.
Now, Lindsay Webster, because Alyssa is here coming now in 4th position, Lindsay Webster has put another 3 points cushion between herself and Alyssa Hawley and pretty much solidified her position. She won't need, unless Alyssa wins the next race, it'd be very difficult for her to overtake her in the U.S. Championship Series. But also, Rhea Coble has now gained another 2 points. So the race for 2nd, 3rd in that series, as well as Faye taking 3rd, moving up in the series as well. It's going to be very tight in that 2 through 5 position.
Exactly, and still a very, very close race, though. It really is Lindsay's to lose now. I don't see it aside from, you know, something catastrophic happening in West Virginia.
Well, you know, it's interesting. With this first place finish, it would take, she's got 2 firsts, 2 seconds. It would, even with the drop of West Virginia, she still has a phenomenal score.
Oh, exactly.
This is really interesting on the women's side right now. You talk about you can win the regular season or you can win the postseason. And for the men's side, clearly Hobie has all the momentum coming into the postseason. But on the women's side, you have a lot of women who are doing well in the regular season but are building momentum, and they all 4 of these women could come into Tahoe right now in West Virginia with hopes of doing very, very well because their confidence is starting to rise.
Yeah. And something of note that I think is interesting, and you can see just how crushed Faye is at the end of this race, and that's just pure exhaustion.
Yeah.
The heat, it's a little bit hotter than it would have been because the race started a little bit later than usual today, so that dehydration probably a little bit more of a factor in that race out there.
Yeah, that was actually not as warm or as humid as we're used to right now. So it's actually pretty.
It's very pleasant.
It's very pleasant in this shaded booth.
But
very,
it is
very
warmer
pleasant.
than it would have been.
Correct.
Yeah, they were fortunate. This is the least humid day they've had in weeks.
So we're down with Steve Hammond at the finish line with Lindsay Webster and the rest of the ladies. Steve.
Well, oh my goodness, I am here with some incredible women, guys. This is absolutely phenomenal. They are giving us absolute all. Like Faye Stenning, oh my goodness, you had what a race. But Lindsay Webster, you were in 3rd at the buckets, and I saw you go around. How did you catch these girls up?
I'm not sure. I was having a really hard race, and yeah, I mean, I missed my spear, and then right after was the barbed wire, and my hair got stuck in it for like 2 minutes. I could not move. So that was like really frustrating and disheartening, and then got to the bucket, and my back was like cramping, and it wasn't until at the end when actually you were cheering me on, and you were like, you can still get the podium, that it kind of like put the fire in me. And yeah, just going up that hill, I saw Alyssa, tried to hunt her down, and then got to the log, saw Faye, and I were actually worried Alyssa was going to like catch us on the descent, so we duked it out down the hill together like as fast as we could possibly run. And yeah, and then I think that's coming into the finish area, I was like pretty neck and neck with Rhea, and yeah, just kind of, I think I got a bit lucky.
Well, Rhea, come in here, girl. Now, you had a phenomenal race. You were leading into the ties. You could see Faye right on your tail, and also Lindsay right there. I mean, could you hang on? What was going through your head? Did you think, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this?
Honestly, I was so tired coming into this race. I think from Palmerton, I was exhausted both physically and emotionally. So today, this morning, and then with the delay and everything, I was just like, you know what, just go have fun. And I think really that's like the way to race. But the whole time, there's really no way to just like chill and like go easy, because you know that people are right there behind you, especially the course. It didn't have any massive uphill, so I knew that I didn't really make any massive lead on that. So I was looking behind over my shoulder all the time, and one time I looked over my shoulder at the rope and everybody was there, and then it was just like such a close finish. But
you're always so happy.
Phenomenal.
So, like you never
loved it.
Yeah.
It was
smiling.
Couldn't have it any other way. It was amazing. The best one may win, and the best one won. So
explain about getting stuck in the barbed wire. Did these girls cross you? Nicole coming in as well. Alyssa's over there too. This is awesome. Lindsay, what happened in that barbed wire? Because you said your hair got caught.
Yeah, I got caught once. I got it free. It got caught a second time, and this lovely gentleman was helping me get it free. And then I got caught a third time, and that's when like we were stuck there for ages. And he was like, I can't get it. Does anybody have scissors? And I know. Finally,
Ryan,
we just
same
stuck
haircut as
like
Ryan.
up here. So I think that's
I got stuck in the mud there right before the rope climb. I like fell in and I couldn't get out. Like my whole leg, like up to here,
It was like a suction
Like
cup.
no. Yeah, it was very, very stuck.
I think Faye gets the medal award.
Well, Faye, you absolutely amazing. Like I thought you had an absolute awesome race. You gave it your absolute heart. You're here, absolutely exhausted. I haven't actually heard you talk. Are you completely done?
Yeah, I'm so done. I think like all the other races, I don't think I was able to, for some reason, I couldn't get to this pain threshold. So today I just raced how I think I raced last year, which is basically, and maybe it's not the best race strategy, but it's just redlining from the beginning. So I don't know how long that race was, an hour and a half. I think that was like an hour and a half of 200 beats per minute heart rate. It was brutal, it hurt. I wasn't sure I was going to get through the obstacles because my heart rate was like in my throat like this. So I was really worried about the grip obstacles. They're just a lot harder to do when you can't get a good deep breath. But yeah, I think it just goes to show that like you just gotta suck up the pain, and the more pain you can handle, the faster you can run. And I think earlier this year I really struggled with I kind of forgot how to get to that level of discomfort. And today I just said no matter how bad it hurts, I'm just gonna suck it up. So that's what I did. I knew Rhea was gonna catch me on some of the ups, so I just tried to keep her in striking distance. And the last half of the race, I was just kind of running away from Lindsay. It got pretty technical there. So, and then Lindsay was so supportive, and she was cheering me on while we were racing, and we just kind of bombed that last downhill. So it was a really fun race.
I actually have a funny story. I was chasing Faye like somewhere in the middle of the race, and the uphill just started. And one of the guys was like, oh, like you can catch Faye. She's like right there, and she sounds like she's dying, but I think that's normal. So it explains how Faye runs the race. Like I really like anytime. I don't know if you've ever been on the course with her, but it sounds like she's really gonna die any minute, but she keeps going. She never stops, and I really admire that about you. It's just like the way you can just like run yourself out there. It's impressive.
The guys talk about redlining. They were talking about it earlier. Like Amelia was talking about redlining in the booth, and yeah, you actually redlined that whole race, like from start to finish. I saw you at the buckets, and you were like breathing heavily, and it was the whole way. All right, who liked the buckets?
Oh my God, I did not expect that. I thought we just were going up and down because people were like, it's the same as last year, and then it kept going.
I see kind of a trend in how you're designing the courses. I think that you guys pick one obstacle and just make it really, really hard. So like the Seattle race, it was like very grip intensive, and that was like, and then the sandbag in Palmerton, and this, it seemed to be the bucket was the obstacle of the day. So I don't know if you guys are just trying to pick an obstacle and yeah.
So we're going to combine all of that. No, well, at Tahoe, but we're going to combine all that at West Virginia. West Virginia is going to be absolutely crazy. Okay, it is a beast. Who's excited, girls?
Yeah. I love beast. I love long. I miss long. So Hawaii next weekend. Yeah.
It's like world champs last year, I think. So yeah.
So what are your training preparations going to be for this? Like, are you going to just stay on the path you're at, or are you going to change anything?
Vacation. Yeah.
So you and your vacations, you go into vacations and then you come back and destroy it.
It's really interesting. Like Nicole came off, I think it was an injury, or she was busy with school, and she barely ran because she had exams, and then she comes and does so well at the Monterey race, and then Rhea took a bit of downtime and then killed it at Palmerton. So yeah, I think we're all going to go to Mexico, just lay on the beach, have some margaritas, and see what happens in West Virginia.
That sounds great. I might join you. Well, great job, ladies. Absolutely fantastic. I'm going to send the guys back to Dave. Awesome stuff. Well done, ladies. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot, Steve, and a huge congratulations to Lindsay Webster on her first place today, and it looks like she's going to probably wrap up the U.S. Championship Series. A huge congratulations to Faye Stanning for getting back on the podium, and Rhea Coble with another second-place finish has really established herself as one of the names to beat, and I think we all are a little surprised at how great she's become, how fast. We all knew she'd be good.
Exactly. Well, she is a student of obstacle racing. When she decided to do this, and it was like studying everything and learning everything, and like so many of us that come into this sport, you have no idea how to train for it. But she's really, really jumped in with both of her feet and has just such passion and does so well at these races.
Would you think that it's possible that her gymnastics background and that training discipline and the precision of that training has a lot to do with how quickly she's picked up this sport?
Yeah, you combine that with her running. Her grip is practically bulletproof. Gymnasts, everything they do is supporting their body weight by their hands, and there may not be a better skill other than mountain running in this entire sport.
We talk about how a rock climber and a runner merged together is probably the perfect for this sport. Gymnast, the same thing.
And the other thing that I always like is the discipline element of that particular sport. It's such a disciplined sport where everything is so precise and so technical, and the amount of time that goes into it. She's clearly taken that, and it's translated to her obstacle racing. And now she's seeing the fruits of her labors, because 2 second-place finishes to Lindsey Webster on courses that both, I think, suited Lindsey very well, and yet they were very close races. Says a lot about the talent that Rhea Coble has.
And I think what's so incredible, if you look at this women's field today, you had Lindsey, Rhea, Faye, then you had Alyssa and Nicole. And these are the 5 names that you keep seeing pop up over and over and over again, just kind of switching and changing. Whereas the men's Hobie has been dominant and has been untouchable. Women is just wide open. Everyone's in the thick of it. And I think that's so exciting. And that's what we've wanted from this sport for a really long time.
It has definitely changed a lot in terms of the amount of parity in the women's field, because it used to be it was just you and Rose. And not that we didn't love that, but now it is very difficult to predict a winner. I mean, it took one of the greatest comebacks I think we've seen in the U.S. Championship Series history, if not the greatest comeback, for Lindsey Webster to run down that 3-minute gap and steal that race in literally the final 3 obstacles.
And even from last year to this year, Lindsey was untouchable last year. Like Faye gave her a run for her money in a few races, but still couldn't pull that out at the end. But here now you're seeing everyone stepping up at different courses, and it just creates this great, I think it's all going to come together at West Virginia.
Yeah, parity really is the word of what this women's sport has evolved into. However, I think we were robbed of a dominant performance by Lindsey today, because we keep talking about she lost 2 minutes in the barbed wire. Prior to that, she lost 2 minutes on burpees. She was the only woman that did burpees out of those top 5. So we might have looked at an actual 3-minute victory for her had it not been for these unforeseen and foreseen mess-ups.
And that's probably a freak thing that will not happen again, what happened to her in the barbed wire. The spear, you could say, well, that seems to be a trend. But the way she ran them down was, I'd say, heroic is probably the best term for it.
Absolutely.
So as far as we've now been around this sport, us for the last however many years, 5 years, 6 years, we've seen this thing evolve so much, and we've seen the athletes evolve. And now it's probably at its highest level we've ever seen it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We're definitely going to get back more into that in a moment. The biggest thing right now is that Hobie Call has come back and won another championship, another race with another dominant performance. Lindsey Webster doing the same, staking her claim on the U.S. Championship Series as well. And when we come back, all the highlights from the race, we're going to be talking to all the athletes, and you're going to get it all right here. So please stay with us.
Going into the U.S. Championship Series is just a whole different game. You know that playing field is deep. Everybody's working hard to peak for those races, and it takes everything you have, mentally, spiritually, and physically, to go into those races and do your best.
I think the series kind of changes the sport to kind of like a World Cup. All the best athletes are coming to these races. You get to have a mini World Championship almost every single month. So this is actually naming the best overall.
And the courses are also so different. It almost becomes like a war of attrition. It's like who
can you stay healthy?
Yeah, being healthy and durable, I think, is #1 priority.
Breaks you down.
When I started, you can fail an obstacle and just make it up in the running. Nobody knew how to train for this. Now, people aren't failing in obstacles.
You can't afford to make a mistake now. You make a mistake, you're in 3rd, 4th, or 5th. You have to run a perfect race.
You have to be quick, and it's about technique.
And it's as much about strength as it is about skill. You can be one of the most proficient people with the upper body strength, but if you don't know the correct way to go about an obstacle, it can totally throw off your race.
It's pretty cool to watch the sport evolve.
What's so important about carrying these weights, struggling and cheering on your fellow comrades? It's so important because it gives people the belief in themselves. I am a warrior, I am strong, I am resilient. That warrior mythos, it exists in every human being. But many of these first world things need to be erased to get to that warrior ethos inside. The race, the wind, the trees, the mud, working together, running together, struggling together. It takes away all the noise.
This movement transcends cultural barriers, and it's affecting people from every corner of the world. It occurred, this was much bigger than just a weekend event. This was a sport. In the last 4 years, we've seen this sport grow and grow and grow. It's been a hell of a ride.
The U.S. Championship Series is really starting to define the sport as a whole.
We've got 6 races to test somebody over multiple distances. Who is the fittest across all of these domains? Who really is the best?
We're pitting the best athletes in OCR against each other. We're out there battling as hard as we can.
It's very, very competitive.
To win, it's going to take perfect performance.
Every race takes everything out of you.
It's about heart, grit. It's basically about human survival. It's about being tested and living up to that test.
And welcome back to Asheville, North Carolina at Black Mountain for the Southeast Showdown. It's race 4 in the Spartan U.S. Championship Series, and we just watched Hobie Call lock up the men's title in just 4 races. 3 straight victories for the defending world champ, our only multi-time world champion as well. And at 40 years of age, he shows no signs of slowing down, even though he says he's retiring soon.
I'm not sure if he'll ever retire, just maybe from competitive, as he said.
Maybe from racing all the time he'll retire from, which is what he's done in the past like 3 times.
He's one of the rare athletes out here, though, who truly does enjoy it no matter what he does. He wins and he's ecstatic. And we've had races he's crossed in 9th before, and he comes across high-fiving people. He just really, truly enjoys obstacle racing so much that I could actually see him coming out and just having fun. But for him, having fun would probably lead to more wins.
And the interesting thing is when we look at these races, this is the only sport in the world where the best in the world hang out in the festival area with all the open class racers afterwards and just hang out with them. Can you imagine going to a football game where the players come and hang out with you and share a protein drink with you after the game? It's not happening. But Hobie Call set that tone early on. He'll spend the rest of the day today just talking with fans, taking pictures with anybody who wants him, and just getting to know people and asking them about them. Because that's the kind of guy he is.
To that end, we also have a unique sport in that no one's really ducking each other. You look at track and field, and a lot of the top athletes, because of appearance fees and sponsorship deals, they really don't want to lose. And they come back, and then they kind of duck, and I'll do this, I'll do Monaco and not England or London, you know, whatever it's going to be, where every athlete shows up to every race, and they duke it out, and then they go hang out afterwards.
Exactly.
So we're going to show you some highlights from the men's race coming up right now. And we started with the callovers, and obviously one of the best in the world, Ryan Atkins, came in with the goal of gaining that point that he was behind Hobie Call on. But Hobie Call came in with another mindset. I'm going to win this entire series right here today.
Exactly, and you know, you can never count him out. You can never, yeah, he's always going to be at the top.
We had a whole group of athletes we were looking at, people we were predicting to win, and at this moment of the race, everyone has high hopes and dreams. And by the end of the river, the race was already done for like 90% of the field. That's all it took. And by the time they got to that double sandbag, it was just down to a 5-horse race. It's crazy how quickly this sport changes from the whole field's in it to now the cream of the crop has just risen right up.
Exactly, and then in those moments and that when that gun goes off, you know, it's anyone's race, and that moment when you're out there and there's opportunity.
So they came out of the riverbed, and it was a mad dash out of the opening few climbs, and then these two men separated themselves almost immediately. Ryan Atkins and Hobie Call put the field on notice that they were going to take it to him today, and after Atkins had a slight gap, Hobie put pressure on him from essentially this point forward. He was a little more proficient at the obstacles aside from this Hercules hoist, which you know is always tough on some of the lighter guys. But once we got through spear, he barbed wired faster, he got through the rolling mud faster, and then he took off with a more aggressive tempo, putting about 20 seconds of gap between Ryan Atkins and himself as they came into that bucket carry. They both hit the spear, they both looked good. You can see Ryan was pretty stoked.
He barely
about
made
it.
that.
He did. And it is always turning around to check it because part of me is like, please, please, please. But yeah, I mean, these two are just going to go back and forth and back and forth.
And a lot of people look at the spear and they say this is kind of a gimmicky obstacle, but it's really not. It's the lone precision obstacle that we have in this sport, and the ability to slow your breathing and perform to the exact way that you would if you were fresh when it's easy is what makes it so challenging, and the pressure of that situation. What other high-pressure situations would they face otherwise? That's one of the reasons it makes it such a good option.
It's very similar if you think about kind of the biathlon where people, it's the cross-country skiing and shooting, you have to slow down and then have that precision, and it's entirely mental. As
So we're going to go to Amelia about that spear.
So we have Hobie Call coming out of Olympus, and then he went straight into the tire flip. And at the tire flip, it took him 3 different tires to find the one that he wanted. But Hobie Call was the only athlete
so smart
to went and lowered the weight down onto his fingers rather than having to re-establish his grip again. And that ultimately may have saved him the race today.
Yeah, though at the same time, it's kind of risky. You're lowering down 400 pounds onto your fingertips.
Yeah. I mean, nobody said it felt good, but he was able to get in and out of that obstacle because it wasn't a matter of strength. It was a matter of getting his fingers under. He nailed Twister, he nailed the multi-rig, and he won the race. And Ryan Atkins was not far behind, but far enough. And from there, you saw your men 3, 4, 5 unable to move that tire twice, only the first flip.
That's one of those where you lose contact and you can't match what the person in front of you is doing. And on this, it was a technique. Had any of them been in sight and seen Hobie, none of those 3 athletes would have failed it, but they just didn't have the concept down of how to do that.
I bet we're going to see that coming up in West Virginia. Everyone's going to be lowering that tire.
So you could see how relaxed Hobie was. He's basically celebrating by the time he's on the multi-rig. He's looking around, waving at people. And have you ever seen an athlete just make it look this easy?
The great ones do, but it doesn't make logical sense.
It doesn't make logical sense, especially when we talk about it. Definitely is one of those things where when you look at it, he's running on 20 miles a week of training. And yet
Allegedly.
he can run, and yet he can run like this. And Ryan Atkins is the complete polar opposite. I mean, how many miles do you think he's putting in a week?
It's also kind of crazy, and we kind of beaten this to death, but the fact that he's at 40 and we haven't seen a slowdown. Obviously, your endurance can build through your 40s, but the fact that he hasn't lost a step yet against this field, he can get out in the front, he can run with anyone, he can still descend as fast as anyone. At 40, we generally start to see an atrophy of your skill set, and we're not.
And especially of the fast twitch and the speed. And that's the thing, is that you can go out and run super, super long races. Maybe you have more slow twitch fibers. As you're older, those don't disintegrate as fast. But to match that speed at that age is incredible.
You know, he's never having to tap into this highest level speed, that absolute sprint, especially because nobody's ever right next to him at the finish. When's the last time you saw Hobie Call in a sprint finish? He's always asserted control at a moment earlier in the race. He always has that defining moment where he disappears from the field. In Palmerton, it was on the descent. For example, he just escaped the field, hit his spear, and nobody ever saw him again. Today, as soon as that bucket carry finished, he took off. You watched him gap Atkins, and it was almost like nothing anybody else did even mattered.
Now, his speed has atrophied, but a bit, but he had a contest with his son, who was a high school track athlete, and he went to an all-comers meet, and he ran a mile. And he ran, I think, 4:36 or something like that. So while it's not what Hobie at 20 would have done, it's still to have low 4:30 speed when you're not training for a track mile speaks to a level of speed that generally you don't see among 40-year-olds.
Right, and we've talked so much about how it's also racing has become now about the transitions, about the speed and the transitions between the obstacles. And having done this since the very beginning, that is Hobie's specialty. He knows how to navigate these.
He's good in and out of the obstacles from a time and speed perspective. Like, he does not slow coming in. He gets up to speed coming out. But he also completes the obstacles very quickly. And we always use this term. We talk about refractory period is the term that you and I always use when we talk about this, how he is able to recover and be back up to speed without any, like, taking any damage from the actual obstacle itself.
You never see him really walk between the obstacles or walk to approach an obstacle. He's always moving, always moving. And that's one of those things. A lot of athletes, you'll see him kind of meander up to the bucket carry, catch their breath, take their time. Hobie is flying through those.
He's got the skill master that we talk about a lot in training. We talk about when we work with athletes, and that is recovering from obstacles while running and recovering from running while doing the obstacles. And it's on paper, it sounds really good. Like, yeah, I just work hard on the obstacle and then recover while I run. But he's able to click right into a fast race pace while recovering. And it's something that very few humans on this planet can do.
It's the prime example of that binding agent that we mentioned earlier, that is the thing that makes him special. Can he run incredibly? Yes. There are some guys out in the field that are actually faster. Can he do obstacles? Great. Yeah, there might be a couple guys out there in the field that are better. But when he puts every piece together, it's incredible. So, guys, while we have it up here, Spartan Kids. Visit SpartanKids.com to find a kids race now. The Spartan Kids race is where we encourage kids to jump, run, get muddy, help each other, and have a good time while conquering obstacles. You are never too young to set goals and celebrate accomplishing them. An epic feeling that's universal. So again, visit SpartanKids.com and find a race near you. So, kids race is going to be kicking off here pretty soon, huh?
Kids race, to me, is the best part of race days. They're absolutely incredible out there to see the kids and the next generation of obstacle racers to really come up through this.
I wonder if VJ Jones came out of the Spartan Kids race.
I wonder. Now, Amelia, we had years of our Midwest races, getting done with our race and going over and leading the kids race.
Exactly.
The best cool down you can get after a race.
Loved rabbiting. And when we come back, guys, we're going to have some of your podium finishers from the U.S. Championship Series race number 4, the Southeast Showdown. So you'll have Ryan Atkins, you'll see Faye Stenning, you'll meet Lindsey Webster, and all this is coming up right after this from Asheville, North Carolina. Stay with us.
Rivalries are the beating heart of most competitive sports, and Spartan racing is no different. It is through these struggles that athletes are forced to evolve and reach heights they may not otherwise achieve on their own.
I see rivalries and competition as a way to truly bring out the best in yourself. And I had Amelia to go back and forth with. It kept me very engaged, and I didn't beat Amelia very often, but the times that I did, she made me work for it, and I knew that that was something to be proud of. That's not something to take lightly, you know?
I think the cool thing about you and I is that we're such different athletes in terms of our strengths. Rose is way faster than me, and I've always excelled on the mountains and the head carries, and so I was forced to try and be faster. I was forced to work on my weaknesses, and she was forced to work on her weaknesses.
Totally. I'm a much better athlete because I've raced against you.
It was a battle last year between Hunter Atkins and myself. Us three just wanted it so bad. I know it's going to be a similar battle this year. That's what motivates me. Like, I know Atkins is out there running hard. I know Hunter's out there running. I know Cody and Hobie are out there, climbing mountains. We just push each other.
Last year, competing so hard with Lindsey, like probably the most exhausting summer I've ever had. thing about Lindsay is you kind of have in your mind some of her weaknesses. In the next race, all of a sudden those weaknesses are now her strengths. When you have really good competitors going back and forth head to head, it's interesting and it keeps people excited to watch.
And we are back in Asheville, North Carolina at Black Mountain. The Southeast Showdown is a wrap for the men's and women's elite races. But we are here with Ryan Atkins, your second place finisher, currently sitting in second place in the U.S. Championship Series. And Ryan does a hell of an effort out there today.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a fun race. I really enjoyed it.
So take us through this a little bit, because you came out of the gates in a really solid position. You went up near the front. And then you and Hobie, when you guys came out of the sandbag and back out into the first return to the main obstacle gauntlets, you had really separated yourselves from the field. What happened?
I think it was just doing a lot of little things right. There was never any defining moment where it's like, oh, we're going to fly through the sandbag. But I think we were all just, Hobie and I were just moving a bit quicker than the other guys. And yeah, I felt good out there today. I was running well and carrying well. And the start was really cool because we all jumped into the big water pit, and it's just chaos, right? Everyone's looking for a dry rock to run on, and there's none. It's just slippery and slidey, and we're all trying to get through it as quickly as possible. And I found a pretty good line partway through that, got me a few meters up, and yeah, and then it was just game on.
Where were you when you entered the river? Because last year I remember we entered kind of side by side. You found a good shortcut across the left. Did you get up right on that this time?
I was thinking about that, and they had taped it off. They had taped off like that sweet left line, and so that wasn't an option. I think I came into the river maybe in like 6th or 7th place, but I knew I didn't want to be crazy high heart rate coming into that, because it's just like a different kind of musculature trying to swamp through all that knee-deep water.
Mm-hmm. So you came out into the sandbag carry, and were you in first going into the sandbag carry?
Yeah,
and coming out. So did you put a little gap there?
I don't know, probably.
And then you and Hobie reconnected. You guys came to the festival area and back out. And then it was the bucket that seemed like it really was the game changer, because he was starting to pull away a little bit. You pulled him completely back in that bucket, and then he just took off.
Yeah, I managed to close the gap back down in the bucket, and I felt pretty good. There was kind of like a little momentary glitch where I didn't know where to go after the bucket, and Hobie kind of ran right back up to me at that moment, and then we took off up the hill together, and he was just out climbing me from that point on, and yeah.
So you've been all over the map with your racing. You've had mid, long distance. You've done some crazy endurance events up in Alaska, and most recently you did like a 1 mile hyper intense course. What are you doing in preparation that you can be so consistently good, top of the world, at races from 1 mile up to 100 miles?
To me, I think it's all about having a really good base of fitness, and then just doing little tweaks here and there to prepare for a specific event. So if you've already got a really good base and you're really well rounded across the field, then you only need a week or two, a couple key workouts to switch it up for a 1 mile event, or a couple really long, grueling mountain runs, and then you're ready for a 100 miler. And this is somewhere in between that. I hit some hard like VO2 max intervals, prepare for this, and ready to go.
So with only 2 beasts really left on the Spartan season, with one beast, that's the final race of the U.S. Championship Series in West Virginia, and then Tahoe for the World Championships, how is your training going to shift?
Yeah, it's my next big race will be the Spartan World Championships, so I'm really gonna focus on that. I think I've basically wrapped up second place for the series.
It seems that way.
So West Virginia is not going to be a focus for me, and I've come second at Spartan World Championships 3 times.
This is the year.
Yeah, I'd really like to improve in that number.
So are you going to be doing some altitude, or anything that you're going to change from last year?
Yeah, I'm going to do, all the good things from last year. I'm going to take all those pieces, and then I'm just going to do a couple more good things, and and hopefully they work.
Well, we certainly hope that it works out for you. I mean, it's been a fantastic season for you, and second place is definitely nothing to scoff at. I know obviously you'd rather be in first, but as we head into World Championships coming up very soon, I know a lot of people out there are rooting for you. So
awesome.
Best
Well,
of luck
thanks,
for
guys.
you today, and well, moving forward, and great job. And we'll be speaking with your wife after
Beauty.
this. She had an amazing comeback.
Yeah, no doubt.
So stay with us, folks. We'll be right back. We were at the U.S. Championship Series, race number 4 in Asheville, North Carolina, for the Southeast Showdown. We'll be right back. Man, you are watching the U.S. Championship Series. This was race 4 from Asheville, North Carolina at Black Mountain, and we had an incredible one out there today. We're talking 8 miles of mud and slick trails and terrain, and now we are back with Lindsay Webster, your women's winner, and what a race it was. You ran back from like 3 minutes down, a disaster between the spear throw and immediately at the barbed wire with your hair getting caught. You lost like 4 minutes there.
Oh, it was so disheartening.
And you won.
Yeah, I still haven't really like internalized that, so yeah.
Where did you, so we saw you obviously in the barbed wire and saw you and I was like, oh God, I feel for you because been there, not to that extent.
I think we've
but you're like massive chunks missing. So when did you start to run everyone down? Was it bucket carry or?
No, the bucket carry for me, like I was trying to keep my back from cramping up. And then I don't know, there's a couple people that cheered me on when I finished that bucket, and like that really kind of helped pick me up a little bit. And then we started the climb, and I saw Alyssa, and I passed Alyssa, and I was still like in a world of pain, like really disheartened, and I was like, man, this is not my race. Like maybe I'll just like see if I can try and make that podium, but like really wasn't that into it. And then I looked at my watch, and like Steve Hammond had told me like the top women will probably clinch it in about like an hour and a half, and I looked at my watch and we were 1:08 in, and I was like, okay, like man up, Lindsay, you got like 20 minutes left.
Well, we're gonna look at some highlights from the race right now, and you can walk us through this. And you know, there you are.
Is chunks of hair in the barbed wire like a highlight?
There will
Somebody
be a
will
little
be
bit of
selling
footage.
that on eBay later.
Did I actually lose chunks?
I know.
I don't know. Maybe someone will make a doll out of it or something.
Exactly.
So we came out of the gates, and again, Nicole
Yeah.
set the tone.
Yeah.
And
Tried
then
to stay with her a little bit.
I was gonna say, do you realize at this point, do you try and stay with her, or do you know that you know she's gonna do that and you're just gonna run your own race?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it depends on the race. So like this time I tried to stay with her because I knew we were gonna hit this water.
Yeah.
And I feel like I like make up a bit of time on her when we hit the technical bits. Although she's getting way better at them, so it's like that scares me a little bit. Yeah. So I don't know. This time I tried to stay with her because I knew we'd have a little break on the water.
you just look so calm when you come in, you know, between obstacles and really when you're running in general. But when
I don't think I was calm here.
well, listen, when Faye hit that spear and then you missed,
yeah,
you're still smiling, but were you getting a little nervous? Like, oh, she's running well today.
You know what? I'm getting frustrated with it. Like, I'm getting frustrated with the missing every time and just having to like make up that minute and a half. But it's happened before, and mostly, I was like happy to see Faye back on top. She's put in so much training, and she's been really smart about it, and she's just sort of waited. Oh, here we go.
Oh, God, so this is where your hair got caught. And
so that was the first time, and then again, right away.
This guy is like the unsung hero.
Oh, I know.
Spartan,
he was such a gentleman.
16822. We salute you.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up his name after
Yeah,
and send him a thank you message.
Most importantly, we were saying, you know, usually it's a huge disadvantage to be a woman with running and catching all the men, and this was the one time that it was like, oh man, this is actually really working out for you.
You think it's a disadvantage to catch them in?
Well, if they're in your way.
Yeah, if you're come on, because you're always yelling like on your left or trying to get around
I find
people.
that they almost tell each other like female coming up and they move aside. They're
have
so
gotten
good
much
at
better.
it. Yeah.
And that's what the folks at home should be doing, getting out of the
Exactly.
way for the really fast ladies.
Yeah. Look at her friggin'.
I know.
So,
climbing that rope.
So okay, you come into the festival area,
No
and
feet.
Rhea climbs this rope like a monster, and you're like, okay, I've got like 3 obstacles to
I was
catch
so
her.
redlined, so at this point I was just trying to get my heart rate down because I don't know, like everybody who does these races knows how hard it is to do the obstacles when your heart rate's really high. You need to take that second to
But
get
you
it down
passed
a
her
little
on Twister, and you know, do you think it was that she was out of gas, or do you think she was just trying to be careful and you took a couple risks?
I think it's techniques for Twister. Like there's so many different ways to do it, and I think just the way that I was doing it was a little bit faster. I think I
noticed
figured
you
out
kind of
for me,
switched
like,
around, right? Like
yeah,
you
I don't mean
did
to.
ba-
It just,
okay.
Yeah, I want to be doing it backwards, but it's hard to stay backwards when you do the transition. So.
Right.
But yeah, I think if I want to get through that obstacle, I have to do it as fast as possible, and that's what I figured out works.
So now I have to ask, because this is coming from someone who's struggled with the spear throw for my entire life. Is it? And everyone always asks me, they're like, "Do you work on it? Do you practice it?" So now I get to ask you that awkward question.
I do, and at home I like hit it all the time. But,
right. So it's a mental thing, right?
I guess so, and it's funny because in Palmerton I actually raced on the Sunday too, and I hit it then.
I
so
heard
I don't.
that,
Maybe it's like
actually,
a pressure thing more than anything. So yeah.
Okay, so did you think when you were hit Twister and you were just a hair behind her, where you're like, okay, I got this? Where was the moment where you were like, okay, I actually am going to catch her?
I didn't realize that I had passed her on the Twister, and then it was, I don't know, I think Ryan was on the sidelines cheering me on, and I heard him, I don't know, say something, and he was like a couple obstacles left, I don't know, and then I realized that I was in front of her, and I was like, okay, I got this, like my arms still feel good, and the obstacles aren't wet, so like I knew I could do the rig.
Yeah, you've been pretty smooth on the grip stuff at the end, the last few races.
Put in the work.
Putting in the work.
It's paying off.
So then you win this, right? And now, I mean, I don't know if it's officially locked up, but it looks like it's pretty close.
Pretty close, yeah. So
And
unless
last year
I,
you
like,
didn't run Breckenridge last year.
I think it's mandatory this year though to do West Virginia.
Uh-huh.
So, and I'm excited for that race anyway.
Good. I think
I want to do it regardless.
it's a good race for you to run. The West Virginia one, I think that's an ideal course for you.
I
That's
don't
my
know what the
belief.
course is going to be like, so I was just hoping it wouldn't be like flat like Seattle or something.
No, I think they'll use the terrain, and we don't know exactly what the profile is going to be, but it's a hilly area. It's over in New River Gorge, so you can look that up later.
Cool.
It's like 10 minutes from there. And you'll have a good time. If you guys are curious where Amelia went, she just got chased off by a bee.
But I think she got stung by a bumblebee.
But she will be back.
Man.
So now it's just the two of us hanging out.
Hi.
Hey.
Sorry, Amelia.
That bee came after me first, but Amelia probably tastes better. So, okay, we have that and we have Worlds. And Worlds for you, I guess the real thing, the only thing that's probably on your mind is, are you going to get a piece of Susanna?
Like I beat Susanna last year at OCR World Championship, so I know it's possible. But I think that she's very much a Spartan racer, and she's good at those long climbs, heavy carries, like. Yeah, I think that course is just like made for her, but I'm also curious to see what other competition is going to come out. There's a Swedish girl named Joy. She might be there, so.
Cool. Yeah. Well, we're going to see Lindsay Webster facing off against some of this best international competition in the world when we go to World Championships in Tahoe, and that's coming up soon. But first, we have West Virginia, the final race in the U.S. Championship Series, and I know you're stoked to wrap this thing up and take another title home.
Oh, fingers crossed.
So best of luck
guys.
in West Virginia. And one more look at the schedule right now, guys. Coming up, the final race of the U.S. Championship Series, August 26th, the Lone Beast in the U.S. Championship Series. We'll be right back with Hobie Call, your men's champion. So stay with.
What's so important about carrying these weights, struggling and cheering on your fellow comrades? It's so important because it gives people the belief in themselves. I am a warrior, I am strong, I am resilient. That warrior mythos, it exists in every human being. But many of these first world things need to be erased to get to that warrior ethos inside. Erased. The wind, the trees, the mud. Working together, running together, struggling together. It takes away all the noise.
This movement transcends cultural barriers, and it's affecting people from every corner of the world. It occurred, this was much bigger than just a weekend event. This was a sport. In the last 4 years, we've seen this sport grow and grow and grow. It's been a hell of a ride.
The U.S. Championship Series is really starting to define the sport as a whole.
We've got 6 races to test somebody over multiple distances. Who is the fittest across all of these domains? Who really is the best?
We're hitting the best athletes in OCR against each other. We're out there battling as hard as we can.
It's very, very competitive.
To win, it's going to take perfect performance.
Every race takes everything out of you.
It's about heart, grit. It's basically about human survival. It's about being tested and living up to that test.
And welcome back to Asheville, North Carolina. It's the Southeast Showdown. The elite race is over. The U.S. Championship Series is locked up for the men's field. We're with Hobie Call, your men's champion, not just of the day, but of the U.S. Championship Series. And congratulations, first and foremost, on a great season.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
And I think everyone is curious. Well, he's already locked up the season, but we have one race to go. Will you be racing in West Virginia?
Yes, I will. That's the plan, to hit all 5 races in the World Championships.
And as the lone beast race of this series, do you find that it's going to be a good tune-up? Is that what you're looking forward to as far as prepping for World Championships? Or is you just looking at this race as a standalone, I just want to run this race?
Honestly, I look at it as a challenge. Last year I focused just on the World Championships, and I skipped all the Championship Series races. And this year I wanted to do the series races and the championships, see if I could do them both. So,
and we certainly have no pressure anymore for the series.
Don't have any pressure for the series championships, but there's still the pressure of, can I win a beast, and then 5 weeks later still win the World Championships again. So there's still that excitement.
Now, speaking about that, last year you prepped solely for Tahoe at the World Championships. This year you have to be on point from April through October. So what is the difference in your training that you have had to implement and able to have staying power all throughout the year and still be able to nail Tahoe?
Oh, just that much more discipline, being that much more methodical. You really got to make sure that you're recovering and then getting your training just right in between races and then tapering just right. It's a lot more structured.
What does that look like for you? What does recovery and taper look like for you when we have 3 to 5 weeks between every big race?
Like this race, I had 3 weeks, so I spent pretty much 1 week recovering, 1 week of training, and then 1 week of tapering. So not a ton of training with only 3 weeks between, but you do what you can, but you got to get recovered, though. If you don't get recovered or if you don't show up rested, you're just going to burn out, and good luck.
Absolutely.
So what would be the perfect ideal cycle if you didn't have these 3-week gaps and you had the right amount of time to train? How long would you really take?
Ideally, for me, I think every 6 weeks I could pull off like the perfect race every 6 weeks. But, 3 is just that much more of a challenge.
So it'd be about 8 a year.
Yeah, there you go.
And we were talking about that number just yesterday. So a second-place finish, and then 3 straight victories. And really, when we look at Seattle, it could be argued that you ran a good enough race to win that race were it not for a couple hiccups here and there. Your thoughts now on the season, looking back and moving forward?
Yeah, I think my fitness in Seattle was there for the win, but, it's obstacle racing, and that's what obstacles are. Sometimes they get you. So, but still, you get through it and you do your best regardless of how it turns out. But no, it's exciting. I won't lie. I came into the season saying I'm going to win all the races. I kind of boldly declared it, and of course, first race it was all out the door right there. But see, then you got the mind game. Then you're like, oh well, I didn't accomplish my goal. Forget it. Or you'd be like, what? There's 4 races left. Let's see if we can win those 4.
Technically, since you get to drop 1, you could leave with all wins in your scoring column. So, was that the first time that you have ever failed a traverse wall obstacle, Z-wall obstacle?
Yes. I believe the only obstacle I've ever failed is a spear throw, other than that one time on the Z-wall, unless I'm forgetting something.
The bucket in Texas, when you had to redo the bucket.
No, that was Cody Moat.
Oh, it was Cody, you're right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, unfortunately, he was ahead of me. He might have won that race, but that wasn't his best day.
Well, we're going to take a look back at some of the replays, and you can walk us through and answer all the questions in the morning. But take us through your mind right now. What was going on in there? So we had the start line, and Ryan Atkins and Robert Killian came out, and you knew they were going to be in for a dogfight with you.
Yep. No, I knew Ryan was really going for it, because if he would have been able to beat me today and in West Virginia, he would have won the point series. So he was just giving everything he had at this race. I knew he wasn't going to give me any breaks.
So where were you as we hit the riverbed and we got into that mess in there? Because I would say the way to describe it is mess. Where did you position yourself?
Definitely a mess. I didn't worry about being in the front. I actually didn't want to be in the front because I want to see how the people in front of me are going. If there's a hole and they fall into it, then I can anticipate it. So I wanted a few people in front of me, but I didn't want to be far enough back that I was stuck behind people. So I wanted to be about top 5, and that's pretty much how it worked out.
So then you guys went through that sandbag carry, and did you make any moves there? Was that where you started to move up, or?
The goal on the sandbag, I actually hit the sandbag in second. My goal was just not to let Ryan get too far ahead. I knew that he's super powerful on a carry spin. There's 120 pounds. I just wanted to make sure I kept within sight of him. I didn't want to let him get away from me.
And he pulled a few seconds on the hoist, but you ran him down all in the barbed wire very, very quickly, and then actually seized the lead at the rolling line and took off.
Yeah, that was the plan. I knew at the bucket brigade he might have an advantage on me, so I wanted to get there at least with him, if not ahead of him. So it was all strategic there. I wasn't trying to necessarily pull away before then, but I wanted to be positioned strong at least when we hit the bucket brigade.
What were you feeling like throughout this? Were you pushed? Were you redlined, or were you holding back and playing your hand?
No, you if you redline too early, you're gonna pay for it sooner or later. There's no way around it, and I'm not gonna try playing mind games with Ryan. He's too strong for that. So I just had to play where I was gonna finish strong. And
when was that? What did you have targeted on your course here? Where were you taking off?
After the bucket. I knew we had a lot of long hills after the bucket. I wanted to pull away from him on the uphills, make sure I didn't lose any of that on the downhills.
I mean, you threw a very aggressive attack as soon as you dumped your bucket. I mean, you gapped him instantaneously, and then it was about maybe a minute plus that you took on him over the rest of that course before we came out here into the festival area. And the descent, were you aggressive on it as well, or were you just kind of maintain at that point?
So it was to maintain. I wanted to do well enough on the descent that Ryan didn't catch me, but I wanted to save enough energy to have a decent finish, so I didn't look too bad finishing.
So I don't look too bad. Always the showman.
That twister technique, is this the first time you've gone backwards on the twister?
It is the first time. For the first time ever, I was able to actually practice a little, other than just doing it in a race. And so did it backwards once. I was like, oh yeah, totally the way to go.
You've always been sort of innovative with a lot of the techniques that we have, and we watched you do that with the tire today, where you got the tire up after testing 3 and realizing how difficult it was to get your fingers under. I think you said, I don't know, I'm not doing that again. And you lowered it down on your fingers, and you were the only guy to do so. And 3rd, 4th, and 5th place positions, all those men, Gawiski, Woods, Killian, they all had to do burpees on the tire.
That was tough to get your fingers under. It was my 3rd tire before I finally got them under, and I have to credit my wife for that, actually. It wasn't my idea. My wife texted me last night and says, I was watching somebody, and they kept their hands out. They pulled it down and kept their fingers under, and I was like, that's not a bad idea at all. So I just brought it down with it and just right back up.
Irene for the win.
Yep, Irene for the win, because Ryan was actually catching me on the tire because I was struggling so much. If I would have struggled getting it back over the second time, who knows how things might have turned out.
So you're a master of training in terms of tactics and preparation. And what is going to change as we shift from supers into beasts for the next few races?
Nothing, honestly. I set my season up at the beginning of the season, and it's a slow progression, and it's just always been progressing towards the beast. So no changes, just keep going one little step at a time. We'll have that endurance when the race comes.
Biggest question I got after last episode from everyone, they want to know, how is it possible that you're not starting to atrophy as you become a Masters athlete? How are you continuing to stay on top? What has had to change in your life and your training to do the things you were doing 10 years ago?
Oh, partly it's just more discipline. I mean, you really got to get your rest. I mean, on my lunch breaks at work, I work construction. I'm in this new home construction, and I bring mats. And during lunch, I eat my lunch really quick, and then I lay down on the ground, and I just relax for 15 minutes before I go back to work. You know, whenever you can fit it in there, you got to get your rest. Your nutrition has to be, I mean, above and beyond. You got to be eating healthy. And, you know, then after the races, recover and always taper before so you're fresh. Don't just go out there and just work, because you'll just dig yourself into a hole.
So when is it that you are going to let some of these other guys win some races?
In about 2 months when I retire.
He said it here, people. looked in the camera and said it, that
gonna
he's
hold
going to
you to it.
retire in 2 months. Yeah, this time it's for real. This is like the 3rd time.
This is for real.
This one's for real. Well, for those of you who are not retiring, just know that Spartan Super Savings, you can get them $25 off any super race if you use code Spartan, or excuse me, if you use code SUPER25. $25 off any super race. So there'll be a lot of folks out there doing that. Hobie, we want to thank you
Thank
for
you so much.
years of just representing the sport the right way and just continuing to be a great champion.
Well, thank you. Just doing my best.
And for those of you who are looking for another event to do, check out the Iceland Ultra World Championships. Visit iceland.spartan.com for more info. It's December 16th, 2017 in Reykjavik, Iceland. It's going to be an amazing event. If you want more details, you can visit iceland.spartan.com. We're going to be checking out a bunch of the women's highlights, speaking with some of the women after this from Asheville, North Carolina. Stay tuned.
Joe DeSena is the creator of Spartan Race. He's back in his hometown for a 300 Spartan workout with some of the toughest New Yorkers there are. New York City cops, firemen, and military personnel.
As your bodies start to disengage, it's telling your mind you can't do things. Well, it's wrong.
As a native New Yorker, Joe understands the pressures of city life all too well.
I was working on Wall Street. I just found myself in a monotonous life. Someone introduces me to adventure racing, and I'm blown away.
Joe conquered hundreds of intense adventure races around the world, but these extreme events are time-consuming and expensive, making them accessible to only the elite.
It occurs to me that wouldn't it be awesome to create a race series that the masses could participate in?
5 years later, the Spartan Race was born. 700 people braved the shorter but equally grueling course near Joe's home in rural Vermont.
The idea was, could we create something that felt like being a Navy SEAL for a day or being in the Olympics for a day? And it's worked in a really big way.
Numbers increased exponentially, and within 4 years, 750,000 people were registered to compete across 131 races in 17 countries.
The ideals for Spartan Race are the same ideals that formed Sparta. They were a very disciplined culture. They were a bunch of badass individuals. This race signifies very similar attributes. We had one goal in mind when we started Spartan, and it was to rip people off the couch. Comfort, it stunts growth. When you get outside your comfort zone and you do things like this, you grow. Spartan's a movement. It gives people a new existence.
Wow, welcome back. Look at that beautiful view from Asheville, North Carolina. But the next big race that you all need to concern yourselves with is the 2017 Spartan World Championships. It's September 30th this year in Lake Tahoe, California. It is the preeminent event of the obstacle racing season. This championship feast takes place on the 30th of September and is hosted at one of the most challenging courses in the world, Squaw Valley at Lake Tahoe. It was the home of the Olympics, guys. Every racer that reaches the start line has earned the right to compete. Competitive and open class racers are still able to run this course, but to be eligible to compete in the World Championships for the grand prizes, the money elite heats, you must earn your World Championship coin. So you must qualify top 5 at one of the other events at Spartan Race around the country. Don't forget to register. These ladies know a little something about the World Championships. I'm here with Rhea Coble and Faye Stenning, 2nd and 3rd place today.
Hello.
An amazing showing from both you guys. And first of all, take us through how this happened, because Faye, you dropped the hammer on the field early. You set the tone. I mean, you made the race today.
Yeah, I just decided, you know, I've had kind of a slow year, and I was thinking, oh, maybe I'm out of shape, and I wasn't really sure, and I just thought, you know, I got nothing to lose. I'm 5th in the standings. I'm just going to go out there and just see if I can just redline this whole race. And It was excruciatingly painful, but yeah, I'm happy with my result today. And sometimes it just takes, being tougher out there to have a better performance. So yeah, I'm really happy.
Now, did you feel that your fitness has improved at this point, or did you feel that this is just the most perfect course for your skill set?
No, I don't think. Palmerton definitely is not my skill set, and that technical running is really hard for me. So yes, it was a better course for me, but I just think that mentally, physically, I was just not going to stop at anything today. I was like, I'm just going to suffer, and I'm just going to grind it out like I did last year, and just kind of accept the pain more and get more willing to just dig deeper and and have a clean race, which I've been doing all year, which I wasn't able to do last year. So positives in every season, but it was so hard. I think that last gauntlet of obstacles, like I had to actually walk into the obstacles because my heart was in my chest and I just couldn't breathe, and I was so nervous about failing, just like the twister and the rigs. So yeah, I'm just happy. It feels really good to walk away with the race where you know that you hit the wall at that last 100 meters and you had nothing left. So feeling pretty good.
So talk to me a bit about the journey, because you busted onto the scene a couple years ago, right at the end of the year, and then last year was your coming out party and you were just killing it. And then you've had a couple struggles early on, but it's mostly, I think, that the other women around you have begun to elevate themselves as well. And so now you're creeping yourself back up into those podium spots where you've been so familiar. And what's that journey been like for you?
Yeah, well, it definitely feels good to be back in the podium spot. I was missing being the top 3, so I'm super happy about that. But I think the journey's been awesome. As much as it feels so good to be always guaranteed to podium like I think I was last year, it just shows that the sport is really, really growing. So on one end, it's like, oh, I don't get an NBC interview and the boo-hoo. But on the other end, it just, this is a real sport now, and no one's guaranteed to win this series as a fight. This year, it's not just a fight between me and Lindsay, it's a fight with the top 5. So, you can't be upset that the sport that you love is growing at this fast pace. So, it's awesome, and it really makes you be careful with your training and injuries, and it really just has stepped up the game this year. So I'm happy, and it's just a lot harder year for everyone.
Faye, you mentioned that it's been a battle every race for the top 5, and Rhea, you've been in the top 5 for all these races. I think both of you have been in the top 5, but Rhea now 5th, 4th, and now 2 seconds.
2 seconds, yeah.
So what has this journey been like as you've really started to turn the corner? It's obvious with your training and your racing.
It's been so exciting. It started off kind of at a low point, and I think that was probably the best way to start it because it's only been getting better. And actually, this race, I was so tired this morning. I think from Palmerton really took out a lot from me, both physically and mentally. And then with the delay this morning, it was very hard to start. And so I kind of told myself again to run my own race, which then kind of turned into chasing Faye for most of the time. And it was very funny. One of the last hills that she was right in front of me, one of the guys said, "Faye's right there, you can catch it, and she sounds like she's dying, but I think that's normal." And that kind of is how Faye runs the race. So she just gives it her all, and it's inspiring, and it's fun to race like that when you know that everybody's there giving it their all. But it's so exciting to be second place. I think I was in the first place for the last, mile or two, and Lindsay caught me right at the finish line.
Right at the finish. We're going to take a look at that right now. So we can go back through. We'll recap the race. Let's walk through it, all of us right now. So you guys came out. Little intro. What's it like up there every single time? Is it nerves? Is it butterflies? Is it just excitement?
Usually I'm excited and nervous at the same time, but I think today I was excited and nervous at 7:40. By 8:15, I just kind of wanted to go.
Yeah, it was so funny. With the delay, we were all sitting in the pro tent, just sitting down, chilling, just talking. The energy definitely dropped. We weren't sure when we were gonna race, and we were all just kind of hanging out together. It's no one seemed nervous, so it was an interesting start, and then it was Nicole goes out hard and we're running, and it's me and Nicole, and I was so happy with like, oh, this is runnable, awesome, this is my strength. And then you get to the water, and then all of a sudden you got 20 girls. I'm like, all this work, and now I'm in like 7th. And
It
so,
was neck deep too.
Oh my
I think
God.
I was like in the worst place I've ever been in a race ever after that water.
Yeah, the
crossing.
water. It was like, well, this is anyone's game now. It really slowed down the runners. So that
And then
was
it really opened up because you guys, when you guys came rolling out of the woods and into the Herkoist, and you guys came out of the spear throw, things were really shaking up. You had a chance to both pass Lindsay there.
Yeah, we both hit the spear, right?
You both hit the spear.
Yeah.
Lindsay's hair snagged. I don't know if you guys knew this, but she was caught in there for probably 1.5 to 2 minutes.
Yeah.
This
I was
guy was trying
wondering
to
where
help
she
her.
was.
And,
Oh.
but she stayed so calm was, I think, the most amazing thing about it. And she just continued to run her race. And you went on attack mode. I saw that when she missed the spear, Faye. I saw you take off with like a little bit of aggression. You were blown by all the dudes in the barbed wire, and
I just kept saying to myself, like, this is my opportunity. This is my opportunity. Like, don't let this opportunity slide. So
game face.
Yeah, my game face. This bucket was so long, and
Oh, boy,
sometimes
it
you
was
see
long.
before the race kind of where the bucket is, and I had no idea, and I
thought it was over kind of at the top of that hill. And
Yeah.
So most
I
people
know.
did.
that was just the beginning.
That was what they did.
Oh
that
my
was
God.
that was what they did just to mess with everybody. So apparently, though, your bucket took like over 10 minutes, right?
Oh, yeah,
so you're
it
just
felt
carrying
like
it forever, and your back's just getting lit up.
My back was like killing me at the bottom of that hill, and you still had to come all the way back up, and I was just like, just don't put it down, it's going to take longer and it's going to hurt more.
So we came down here, you climbed the rope, we hit the tire, and then at Twister, all of a sudden Lindsay was just by you.
Yeah, I do the Twister the bulletproof way, which is hand matching, which is slower than what she does. Which
Safe
is
and deliberate.
Yeah, but I still said, like, I knew that Faye was right after me, and I knew that Alyssa was close, and I was like, like losing like a few seconds here and not losing like 5 podium spots is still worth it. So took it slow and deliberate and bulletproof.
So Faye, you were pretty trashed when you finished this race. I mean, look at you
Oh
right
my
there.
God, I was hurting so bad. Honestly, the girls are so nice. Like, Lindsay caught up to me on the log, and she was like, this is your race, you still got it. And I was like, I said to her in the race, I said, how did this happen? It's like, I had such a lead, and like, how did this happen? Like, where did you come from?
She descends. She just descends so fast.
She was like, Faye, get that out of your head. She's like, you still got it. It's a really special sport that you have someone that you're competing against, and she's trying to support you on like a time that you're not, a little bit struggling. So it was amazing. And then we had this nice downhill, and then me and Lindsay just opened up on the downhill. And I think that's maybe where we kind of got a little bit closer to Rhea. We just really opened up on this down. And it really felt like we were working together, and I knew it was going to come down to the obstacles. I kind of thought maybe Lindsay would have a slip on the grip stuff, but she didn't. We all had a clean race, so pretty awesome.
By the way, never would happen in the men's race, by the way. That some guy would come by and encourage you to just keep going.
I know.
The women are so nice.
I
You guys
know.
y'all
it's
love
like,
each other.
Yeah, you want to beat each other, but you also want everyone to have a good race. So
Yeah, I would absolutely. You want to beat your opponents at their best.
Mhm.
So we're going to walk through that Twister moment again,
Sure.
Rhea, because I think this was one of the defining moments of the race today. Lindsay made her move there. She got a little aggressive. And are you looking back at it now saying, God, I wish I was a little less relaxed here?
Not on the Twister, actually. I wish I kind of pushed those uphills a little bit faster.
The
Or the
uphills.
downhills. Because, like, at the end, those minutes at the end were probably minutes that could be gotten somewhere earlier in the race. But I think Twister, I want to, like, practice it not in a race. I know this way gets me through, and I knew that there was still a multi-rig after that, and my grip was pretty fried at that point.
Really?
Yeah, that, like, the uphill thing on the rig was pretty hard. I was kind of slipping off there.
We always assume, and maybe we shouldn't be assuming, but we always assume that your gymnastics background, your uneven bars
That was
background would
years
make
ago.
you so good at this.
Well, I think it makes me good at the flow. So, like, the Twister, I go slow, but it's, like, pretty effortless. But the grip, like, I quit gymnastics in 2007, I think. It's
So it's
2017
been a decade,
now.
right?
Yeah,
It's been a decade.
I changed my body a lot in that, and it just, like, it's not, like, the grip strength itself leaves. Like, the flow is there, but the grip strength itself, I need to work on that a lot.
Yeah, the
So-
Twister's funny. like at the open house on Friday, I was like watching it. It was kind of messing me up. Everyone's now really trying to figure out that obstacle and how to do it fast. People have now gotten to the point they figured out, okay, we know how to get through this obstacle without failing it, but now how do we do it faster? And people are doing a backwards technique.
I want to try that one.
Which is what Lindsay did. And I was like, do I change my technique before a race? Oh, you don't want to try anything new before a race. But yeah, with seeing how tight it was, it's now people are going to have to think, how do we do this in 15 seconds as opposed to 30 seconds now? So it's going to be interesting.
It's one of those new game changers. And
Yep.
we now have one race left on the season. We're in West Virginia. It's the only beast in the season. And you guys are both coming in with a lot of momentum now. Both trending up. So thoughts on that race? Who's taking Lindsay down?
I'm going on another vacation. That
You're-
seems to be
is
the
that-
best
is that the move?
training strategy. I love beasts too. I think longer races are kind of my thing, but I also know long races are kind of Lindsay's thing. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Are you guys prepped and ready and hoping for another W there? We'll get you
Yeah.
back on the first place. The final race of the U.S. Championship Series, as you guys can see the schedule up there on your screens, August 26th. It's West Virginia. It's not far from New River Gorge, if anybody knows that area out there. It's about 10 minutes away from there. Great whitewater rafting area. And after that, it's the Spartan World Championships in Tahoe that I know you guys have been looking forward to. Faye, you've been looking forward to that one since last year.
Yeah, I know. I'm
With
not
that
going to
epic-
lose by a 1/100th of a second this time. Oh, my goodness.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, great race from both of you today. Faye, Rhea, I think you both should be really proud. And this was an incredible showing from both of you guys. And from all the way across the country, we went from Monterey to Seattle and then Palmerton, and now we're down here in Asheville. We pretty much hit every type of terrain you could imagine. And 4 in, 1 to go. Ready to go for the next season, for the final race of the season. Everybody at home, thank you so much for tuning in to the Southeast Showdown in Asheville, North Carolina. We will see you in West Virginia. On behalf of everybody here at Spartan Race, we are looking forward to seeing you at the Ascent, August 26th, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Same place you can find us right here. We'll see you then.